Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham, from Pretty Much the Present. And in this video, we'll be bringing you a compilation of old-time radio detective podcasts from 2010. The podcasts are appearing, for the most part, unedited, except for some extraneous or repetitive elements that are being removed because this is a compilation. As I said, these are old, so any websites or offers mentioned may not be valid at the time you're listening unless you find them on our website currently. Now, with that said, here is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. You can follow us over on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. Nominations for the Podcast Awards have opened up at podcastawards.com. And if you think the show is worthy of nomination, you can nominate us over at podcastawards.com. One brief programming note, there was a little problem with episode 0264, Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of the Disappearing Scientist, where the episode uploaded cut off the solution by Holmes. We've gone ahead and we've re-uploaded that, so if you run into that issue, just go ahead and re-download that. But with that, we don't have a whole lot else to say before we get into today's Thin Man. This one is the Lux Radio Theater presentation of After the Thin Man, the second in the Thin Man movie series. You know, I've enjoyed these 2 weeks of playing these from Lux Radio Theater. But if you'd like to find out more about the on-screen adventures of Nick and Nora Charles, perhaps to compare the movies to the radio version, as well as to see the other movies in the series, there's a great way to do that. It's the way I'll do it. I recommend going through Netflix. Netflix, you got access to a library of nearly 100,000 films with great classics such as The Maltese Falcon and great TV detectives such as Columbo and Monk. You can try it out for a free trial. Go to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Now let's get into today's episode. The Lux Radio Theater presents After the Thin Man.
Lux presents Hollywood. The Lux Radio Theater brings you William Powell and Myrna in After the Thin Man. Ladies and gentlemen, your producer, Mr. Cecil D. DeMille. Greetings from Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. When Edgar Allan Poe popularized the detective story, he found the great common denominator of American entertainment. Millions of us have stayed up past bedtime to explore the fascinating realm of whodunit, including the President of the United States. And you can find devotees in every walk of life, rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief, and probably policeman too. Perhaps we haven't investigated this branch of the drama quite as often as we should in the Lux Radio Theater. But when we do engage a manhunter, we get the very best. Tonight, our play is After the Thin Man, adapted from the MGM picture, and naturally starring the same two players that go with a Thin Man story, Myrna and William Powell. It's an occasion for great rejoicing, but we also must hang our heads a little, because it's exactly 4 years since Miss Loy was last at this microphone. There's more to the story of After the Thin Man than just the exciting quest of a criminal, because our detective is the extraordinary Nick Charles, and Nick has a lovely wife named Nora. They happen to be very much in love. But even love can't keep Nora from interfering with her husband's business when she has an idea. And Nora is a girl with many ideas. Together they can solve just about any problem you give them. But you don't really need a detective to discover that Lux Flakes is the simple answer to your household problems. It's a deduction that millions of women have made after giving Lux Flakes a trial. Now, if your wits have been thoroughly sharpened and you're ready for anything to happen, we'll raise the curtain on the first act of After the Thin Man, starring William Powell as Nick Charles and Myrna Loy as Nora. The railroad station in San Francisco. Into the dim maze of tracks rolls a mighty streamliner, sleek and shiny after its mad dash across the country. With a final throb of its powerful engines, it comes to rest. From the gate tumbles a crowd of reporters and photographers. They rush breathlessly up and down the length of the platform, eager to be the first to greet the arriving celebrities, Mr. and Mrs. Nick Charles.
Where's Nick?
He's probably in that car over there.
Come on, let's get a statement from him.
Is Nick Charles in this car?
Charles, 2 cars back.
Thanks.
Oh, there he is. Hey, Nick.
Hello, Nicky. How does it feel to be home?
You going to stay with us a while now?
From the Chronicle, Mr. Charles. Can I have a statement?
Easy, guys, easy, one at a time. Darling, these are the gentlemen of the press. Gentlemen, my wife.
Glad to know you, Mr. Charles.
How do you do?
How's about a statement, Nick? Are you going to keep on with your detective work?
No, gentlemen, I've retired. Now on, I'm just going to take care of my wife's money. So I'll have something in my old age.
Oh, you said you'd retired before, but I noticed you took that Thin Man case in New York.
Well, that thin man was a beaut. They're still talking about it.
You'd take a case like that now, wouldn't you?
Not a chance. I just took that to please my wife. She wanted some excitement.
Well, I guess you had it, Mr. Charles.
Oh, it was wonderful. 2 men tried to kill him. But he's not going to take any more cases. You can print that.
That's the girl. So long, gentlemen. Come on, darling.
Goodbye,
Nice to meet you,
Mr.
Charles.
Goodbye. Nice to have met you. Nick, slow down. I can't keep up with you going.
What? Excuse me, lady. I guess I wasn't looking where I was going.
No. I guess you were.
Hiya, Fingers.
Well, Nick Charles. Well, how are you?
Fine. How's business, Fingers?
Business? Oh, I quit that racket.
Nick, my purse. It's gone.
Oh, that's a shame. Nora, I want you to meet Fingers McCoy. This is my wife, Fingers.
Your wife?
Mm-hmm.
Say, I didn't know she was... Oh, I'm sorry about your purse, Mrs. Charles.
What'll I do, Nick? I know I had it with me.
Oh, it'll turn up. Won't it, Fingers?
I certainly hope so. Oh, sure. Well, so long, Nick. Glad I bumped into you. Goodbye, Mrs. Charles.
Goodbye. Nick, I've got to go back to the train.
No, I wouldn't bother, darling. Let's get home.
I just can't go off.
Come on now, come on. You don't want to embarrass him, do you?
What do you mean?
Fingers, he's a purse snatcher. Think of his feelings.
A purse snatcher? Well, he must have taken it.
Certainly, but you see, he didn't know you were my wife. You'll get it back in a morning mail, darling. He's a very honest pickpocket.
Oh, Nick, you do know the nicest people.
Hiya, Nick. Welcome home.
Hiya, Bumps. How's the boy?
Never better, Nick. In the pink.
See you around.
A prize fighter, darling?
No, wrestler.
Oh, a wrestler. Well, that's different.
Hiya, Nicky. What's a good boy?
Well, hello, Slats. How's everything?
I'm doing okay. Glad to see you, pal.
Likewise.
Now, there's a sweet character. He ought to be in jail just to play safe.
He got out last Tuesday.
Oh. Welcome home, Nora. Oh, hello. Thank you.
Nice to see you, my dear.
Thank you very much.
Now, who are those people, darling?
You wouldn't know them. They're respectable.
Oh.
You know, darling, the best thing about going away is coming back home.
I suppose you remember that tonight is New Year's.
I know. Got your keys, darling?
Yeah. I also suppose you've got some ideas on the subject.
Very definite ideas.
I was afraid of that.
I want to lock the doors and plug the bells, cut off the telephone, and crawl into bed for months.
Mrs. Charles, you're a woman after my own heart. I won't be awake at midnight, so I'll kiss you now. Happy New Year, Nora.
Happy New Year, darling.
Hiya, folks. What you standing out there for? Come on in.
Hey, what is this?
Well, it's our house, all right.
Come on. Make yourself at home, folks.
Well, let's go in, darling. He says it's all right.
Oh, well, as long as we're invited.
There's the bar right in there. Help yourself.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
What's the celebration?
We're giving a surprise party to Nick and Nora.
Nick and Nora?
Sure, don't you know Nick and Nora?
No, we don't.
Neither do I. But that's not going to spoil my fun. It's New Year's, so what's the odds? Go on in. Fake it. It's a cinch.
Oh, thanks for the tip.
Sure. Get in there and get some of that Napoleon brandy before it's all gone.
May I have this dance, Mrs. Charles?
Thank you, sir. You're a gent. Who are all these people?
Now, let's see. It looks like Mo Stone over there. He's a bookie. The fellow with him is a police captain. And I believe the gentleman in the loud suit runs a pool room. That fellow in the fireman's hat.
Never mind. I get the general idea.
Mrs. Charles, welcome home, madam.
Thank you.
How are you, Peters?
Never better, Mr. Charles. I'm sorry about the party, sir, but they forced their way in.
Yeah, knowing my friends, I can believe that.
Nick, I smell something burning.
Probably just the living room rug or,
If I may be allowed to suggest, sir, that's probably Mrs. Charles' aunt. She's been calling all day and very much annoyed. She wants you to come to dinner this evening, Mrs. Charles.
Oh, dear.
Goodbye, darling. See you next year.
She expects you too, Mr. Charles.
Me? Aunt Catherine wants me to come to dinner?
Well, there must be some mistake. She couldn't want you, Nick. I'll take it in the bedroom, Peters. Nick, come with me.
If it's your Aunt Catherine, get out of it. No more family dinners. I wouldn't go through that again if you had twice as much money.
Hello?
Hello, Nora.
Who is this?
This is Selma.
Oh, hello, darling.
Darling, Aunt Catherine?
Shut up. It's my cousin Selma. How are you, Selma?
Nora, I had to call you. I wanted to make sure you were coming tonight.
Well, I'm afraid not, Selma. You see...
Nora, you've got to come. I'm in terrible trouble.
What?
Please, I can't tell you now, but you must come. I'm desperate. Oh, wait a minute.
Selma, put down that phone.
I won't. I'm speaking to Nora.
Hello?
I told you not to call anyone.
Hello, Selma.
Give me the phone.
Hello, dear.
Hello, is this...
How are you, Nora? This is Aunt Catherine.
Well, what's the matter with Selma?
Oh, nothing at all, dear. You know Selma well enough not to pay too much attention to her. We'll see you tonight, Nora.
Well, you see, it's New Year's Eve, Aunt Catherine.
The old battle axe.
Shut up.
What?
Excuse me, Aunt Catherine. I was talking to the dog.
Oh. We'll expect you at 7:30.
All right, Aunt Catherine. We'll come. Goodbye.
What did you say?
I said we'd be over for dinner.
Oh, my own wife.
I'm sorry, Mickey, but I had to do it. It's Selma. She's in trouble. You like Selma, don't you?
Not as much as that.
But she sounded so funny, as if she'd been crying.
Living as your Aunt Catherine, I can't say I blame her.
Sit up. Selma, stop that crying. Do you want the servants to hear you?
I don't care, Aunt Catherine. I'm going crazy. I can't stand it any longer. I'm going to call the police.
You'll do nothing of the sort. Haven't we paid out enough to hush up his other scandals?
He never did anything like this before. How do we know but what he may be dead?
I told you I'd handle this.
I can't go on this way. Robert's my husband, and then he's...
Quiet. Yes, Henry?
Beg pardon, madam, but shall I set a place for Mr. Robert tonight?
Certainly. Mr. Robert will be here.
Very good, madam.
You know he won't be here, Aunt Catherine.
I know nothing of the sort. Now go upstairs and make yourself presentable.
When Nora comes, I'm going to tell her.
You will not tell her. I will not have that husband of hers snooping into our family affairs.
I don't care. He can help us. I'm going to tell him the whole story.
Nick. Aunt Catherine wants to speak to you.
What did I do now? Use the wrong fork?
Nick, listen. Do you know why Robert wasn't here tonight?
Sure, because he's smart.
I'm not fooling. He's disappeared.
That's swell. Now, if we could only get rid of Aunt Catherine, we'd be all set.
Come on. She's in the library with Selma. Here he is, Aunt Catherine.
Oh, Nicholas, I'm sorry to take you away from the family.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it's quite all right. Well, what's all this about, Selma? How long has Robert been gone?
3 days. 3 days without a word.
You notified the police?
Certainly not, and we're not going to.
Oh, no. Robert may be kidnapped. He may be lying dead somewhere, but we mustn't do anything about it. Our precious name might get in the paper.
Oh, don't pay any attention to her. She's exaggerating the whole affair. However, to please her, I thought you might investigate the matter quietly. With your experience as a flatfoot? And I didn't mean to be as blunt as that.
Why not? It's all in the family.
Selma, have you any idea where Robert might be?
No, but there's a woman mixed up in it. I know it.
Selma, you know nothing of the sort.
What about the vanity case they sent me from that Chinese restaurant?
It was a stupid mistake on their part.
Mistake? Some woman left it. He was there with some woman.
Selma, you know that Robert worships you.
How can you say that? You know he hates me. He only married me for my money. He never did love me. Sometimes I wish he were dead.
Well, I'm a little confused. Tell me, Selma, do you want him back or don't you?
Of course she wants him back. Don't, Selma. Please come, Selma. I'll take you up to your room. Dr. Karl will be here in a moment. He'll give you something for your nerves. Excuse me.
Nora? Nicholas?
Well, Nick, what do you think about it?
I'm not thinking at all. What are you getting me into? There are lots of detectives in this town, men who need the job.
But no one as good as you, Nicky.
That won't get you a thing. I've retired.
But this is different. This is for Selma. You will help find Robert, won't you?
Why? I didn't lose him.
It's your chance, Nick. It'll get you in right with the family.
That's just what I'm afraid of.
Nicky.
Get your hat, darling. We're going to get out of here while we still got the chance. where's it going to be? Still New Year's Eve. We ought to go someplace.
All right, let's go look for Robert.
Now, listen, my sweet.
Hello, Nick. Hello, Nora.
Oh, hiya, David.
David, how nice to see you. What are you standing out here for?
Oh, they don't let me in the house anymore. Selma said she'd try and meet me later.
I'm afraid she won't be able to make it. Did you know that Robert had disappeared?
If he has, it's the only decent thing he's ever done.
What's he been up to lately, David?
The last thing he pulled on me was a couple of days ago. Called up and said that if I'd give him $25,000, he'd go away and leave Selma to me.
Lovely boy.
What did you say?
I asked him to give me a couple of days to think it over. You know, $25,000 would be cheap if he'd really go.
Why don't you pick up a collection? There are a lot of people who'd like to contribute.
Tell me, did you see Selma? How is she?
I'm terribly worried about her.
I know, I am too.
Come on, David. We're going to go someplace and get the taste of respectability out of our mouths.
Thanks, but I couldn't.
Oh, David, why not?
I've got too much on my mind. Well, I'm glad you're back anyway. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Selma was a fool not to have married him instead of Robert.
We can't all be as lucky as you, darling. Well, where are we going?
How do you feel about some Chinese food?
Awful.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Because we're going to that Chinese restaurant that sent the compact to Selma, the lychee. Please, darling.
Now, see here. I'm not looking for Robert.
Of course you're not. I am.
Hey, boss.
Yeah?
Fella here wants a table.
Well, tell him we're all filled up.
I did. He says to tell you his name is Nick Charles.
Nick Charles? Where is he?
Over by the door.
This is more like it.
You must feel right at home in a place like this. Too bad we didn't bring Aunt Catherine.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Hello, dancer. Tell me how many tables.
Oh, I guess I can find one, seeing as it's you. You just slumming?
That's all, dancer. Why?
Just wanted to make sure. I don't like business calls on New Year's. Oh, say, I want you to be my partner. Hey, Lum Key, come here. Yes? I want you to meet a friend of mine, Lum Key. This is Nick Charles.
And Mrs. Charles.
Oh, I'm your friend. You bet you. You sent his brother up, Nick. Lum Ying. Remember?
Oh, yes. He's the one who spread a tongue war out to include sticking up a bank.
Oh, you bet you. You catch my brother. You play trick on him.
No play trick on him, no catch him, you bet you. He's still in jail?
Oh, you bet you. 4 5 years more. Goodbye. Have a nice time, please.
Is he a tong man, too, Mr. Dancer?
No, but you never can tell how close brothers are. I thought you might like to know, Nick.
Thanks.
He's a good guy to have liking it. Oh, there's a table over there by the wall.
This way, Mrs. Charles.
Nicky, there's Robert.
I know, I saw him before.
Why didn't you tell me? Robert?
Oh, hello.
Good evening, Robert. Happy New Year.
Is it?
Robert, what are you doing in a place like this? We just saw Selma, Robert.
Yeah?
She's terribly worried about you. Don't you think you'd better go home?
Sure, I'll go home. When I feel like it, and not before.
Robert!
Oh, let him go.
At your table, Nick. Oh, is that fellow a friend of yours?
On the contrary, he's a relation.
He's been hanging around here drunk for 3 days. He's got a case on our prima donna.
I wish you'd toss him out. His wife is going crazy.
Oh, that's too bad. I'll speak to his girlfriend.
Well, I've done my duty.
Hey, Polly. Polly, come here.
What's up, Dancer?
Now, listen. That boyfriend of yours is pretty drunk.
So what? I thought that was the idea. Keep him happy.
Sure, but a couple of his relations just blew in.
Relations? What do we do?
Well, give the customers one more song and then knock off for the night and take him out of here.
Okay, but I'm getting sick of that guy.
It'll just be Lamar, honey, and then he can turn him loose.
Tomorrow's a holiday. The banks will be closed.
That's right. Well, then the next day. What's the difference? Ain't it worth it?
I guess so.
That's the girl. I'll make it snappy, Polly. I'll keep an eye on her.
Hey, Polly.
Yeah, what?
I got a message for you.
What is it?
Your brother's looking for you.
My brother? Where is he?
In your dressing room. He wants to see you right away.
Hello, Polly. What's the matter? You don't look so happy to see me.
Please, Phil, don't try to start anything. I'm in a hurry.
You've been in a hurry ever since I got back.
Can I help it if I gotta work?
That's not what I'm kicking about. What's going on with this drunk Robert Landis?
Nothing.
Oh, no? Then what's this check doing on your dressing table?
Give me that.
A check made out to you, signed by Robert Landis.
Get out of here. What do you
Shut
think?
up or I'll smack you right in the teeth. I'm in on this, you know.
Phil, please.
If you don't cut me in, the party's off.
I can't cut you in.
The check's yours, ain't it?
Yes, but...
But what? But what?
Let me go. Let me...
Sure. But this is just to remind you that I'm in on the deal.
You big lug. Look what you've done to my face. How am I going to explain that?
There's a lot of things you'll have to explain before I'm through. You and Dancer are taking this Landis guy for plenty of dough, aren't you?
What about it?
How much? Come on, how much?
$25,000.
Did you get it yet?
No.
Go ahead, spill it.
Some friend of his wife's is putting it up to get him to leave her alone.
So you're going to keep him drunk and then collect it for him. When?
I don't know.
When, I said?
Tomorrow night.
Okay. I'll be around the next morning. Early.
What are you doing here?
Hiya, Dancer. Just leaving. So long, Polly.
What did that heel want?
Nothing. It's okay, Dancer.
Now listen, there's a switch in the plans. I just heard that dough is being handed over tonight.
Tonight?
That David guy is meeting Landis in front of his house. Now, you better be with Landis, see?
I'll be there.
I told Nick that you were taking Landis home. Now, make sure they see you as you go out.
Sure.
And when the dough's delivered, you know what to do. I'll be across the street just in case something goes wrong. Now, get going. And no slip-ups.
And see if Robert got home.
Oh, come on. There must be a phone in Dance's office. He won't mind. Hello, Dancer. Come in.
What are you doing in this office?
Just calling a number. Any objection?
Once a gum heel, always a gum heel. I don't like gum heels. And I thought you'd quit it when you married a pot of money.
Did he call me a pot?
Yeah, I don't like to be critical, Dancer. You know, it doesn't look quite right when you and your partner and your prima donna and your best customer all go out at the same time. It gives the place a sort of a vacant look.
Have you ever been thrown out of a place, Mr. Charles?
How many places was it up to yesterday, Mrs. Charles?
How many places have you been in, Mr. Charles?
Hello? Aunt Catherine? This is Nick. Nicholas. What? When? I see. Yes, I will. Bye.
Well, if you're through in here, you can beat it.
What's the matter, Nick? Bad news?
Dancer, you'd better...
Ah, Polly, come in. Another of our travelers has returned. Now, if only Lum Key will... No sooner said than done.
Oh, someone call me?
Quite a gathering of the clan, isn't it? I wonder which one of you would be most surprised if Robert Landis walked in now. You know there's no chance of that, don't you? All of you.
Now, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, get out of here.
What is it, Nick? What's happened?
Robert's been killed.
Killed?
He was killed on the front steps of your aunt's house. Police are questioning Selma.
What's that got to do with us? Go on, get out.
You said that before, Dancer, and it's foolish. I'm not going to get out. On the contrary. We're going to have a lot more people in.
Listen, you...
Hello. Nick Charles speaking. I want to get hold of Lieutenant Abrams, the homicide squad.
Why are you calling him? It's a cinch none of us shot Landis.
That's so. Well, then maybe you'd like to explain how you knew he was shot.
The curtain falls on Act One of After the Thin Man with Myrna and William Powell. During this short intermission before Mr. DeMille presents Act Two, we introduce a very charming guest. Strike up the band, Boo. That music, ladies and gentlemen, welcomes a real Southern belle, Miss Mary Nell Porter from Memphis, Tennessee. In private life, she's a debutante, but this spring she's touring the country in a very important role as Maid of Cotton, representing our huge cotton industry. We're certainly delighted to welcome you to the Lux Radio Theater, Miss Porter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roy. I'm so glad to be here.
I hear that you've been doing quite a little flying the last 3 months.
I certainly have. Over 12,000 miles.
And on top of that, I understand that you've had a staggering schedule of fashion shows and radio speeches and personal appearances in 30 different cities.
It has been a very interesting experience, and I've enjoyed meeting so many nice people all over the country. We've had such large crowds at all our cotton fashion shows.
Well, I'm sure the women want to hear about that.
And I'd love to talk about it. You know, cotton is terribly smart this year for play suits and street dresses and evening frocks.
Now, here, just a minute, please. How about giving us some details?
Well, there's a very good-looking red and white striped daytime dress with big sleeves and has a very full skirt with the cutest Dutch boy pockets. I wear it with blue shoes.
That sounds very patriotic.
It surely is. Red, white, and blue is awfully fashionable this year. A lot of the dresses on our show are patriotic.
I see where the stripes fit in, then.
Well, they're smart, too. And so are flower prints. My bathing suit has tropical flowers scattered all over it.
Oh, so cotton goes swimming.
I should say it does. And dancing, too. You should see one evening dress in our fashion show. It's a brilliant red muslin with large white Hawaiian flowers all over it.
Straight from the South Seas.
Well, straight from a storybook. It has the sweetest puff sleeves and a long basque bodice.
Well, tell me, is cotton all glamour?
Goodness, no. It's simply wonderful for wearing in town, too. Things like gingham or piquet or seersucker make beautifully tailored suits. They're cool as can be and awfully easy to take care of.
Miss Porter, don't you find it hard to keep all these lovely cottons fresh on your trip?
Not at all. You see, the whole wardrobe is luxable. Even some of my shoes and bags.
That makes things easy, doesn't it?
I should say so. Why, new Quick Lux Flakes are simply wonderful. They take such beautiful care of all the lovely new cottons. You know, everything safe in water is safe in Lux.
Ladies, please note, this year's smart cottons are really fine fabrics, and they must be treated gently, just like washable silks, rayons, and woolens. New Quick Lux is so mild, it keeps them new-looking longer.
That's why we use it for everything in our cotton show.
Well, we've certainly enjoyed having you with us tonight, Miss Porter.
Thank you so much. I'm mighty glad to meet you all.
Well, good night, and good luck on your trip home.
Thank you. Good night.
Now, our producer, Mr. DeVille. Act 2 of After the Thin Man, starring William Powell as Nick Charles and Myrna Loy as Nora. It's 2 hours later. With mystery shrouding the death of Robert Landis, the police have been questioning Selma, who discovered the body. Now the grilling is over, and her nerves are worn to the breaking point.
They're going to arrest me. They're going to arrest me, Nora.
No, of course, Selma.
They all believe I did it. Aunt Catherine, everyone.
They don't, Selma. They don't think that at all.
I know. I heard them.
Now, darling.
But I didn't kill him, Nora. I didn't. I'm sure I didn't. I couldn't have.
What? What do you mean?
Nora, you'll help me, won't you?
Tell me what happened. Everything.
He came to the house at midnight to get his things. He said he was leaving me. I tried to stop him. He pushed me away and went down the stairs. I followed him to the front door. While he was letting himself out, I went to the library table. There was a gun there.
A gun, Selma?
I didn't mean to use it. I only wanted to frighten him, to make him come back and listen to me.
All right. Go on.
I went to the door. He was standing on the steps looking up and down the street. And then there was a shot, and he fell.
Where did the shot come from?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right, darling. Never mind. You've been through enough. You'd better lie down now and rest.
I can't rest. I've got to think. Nora.
Yes?
David.
What about David?
He thinks I'm guilty, too. He thinks I killed Robert.
Selma, how could...
He must think so, or he wouldn't have taken...
He wouldn't have taken what?
Nothing. But he mustn't think that. I couldn't bear it. You must tell him. Tell him I didn't do it.
Couldn't you tell him?
No, somebody might be listening. You go to him. Tell him. Hurry.
Who is it?
It's me, Nora.
Hello, Nora. This is a surprise. Come in.
I got over as soon as I could, David. Selma
What's the
said
matter? Is there anything wrong?
What do you mean you don't know?
No, what? What's happened?
Robert's been killed.
Killed? That's impossible.
What do you mean?
I saw him only a little while ago.
How long ago?
About 10 o'clock. I met him in front of the house and gave him $25,000 in bonds.
Wait a minute. This is too much for me. Where did he go then?
He went inside the house to get his things.
Oh, then it was when he came out again that he was shot.
I've got to see Selma. Will you come with me?
Come on.
No, you don't. Stay right where you are, the both of you.
What is this? Who are you?
Detective Malloy, Homicide Squad. We've had our eye on you, buddy. Trying to make a getaway, huh?
Are you crazy? Listen, someone's been kidding you, officer.
Sure. Maybe you were kidding, too, when you were seen throwing that gun into the river.
David.
It's all right. There's been a mistake. Tell Selma, will you?
All right.
Come here, sister. You're not telling anybody anything. You're going along with us.
Where?
Down to headquarters.
Oh, oh, you don't understand. I'm Mrs. Nick Charles.
Oh, yeah? And I'm Mother Goose. Come on, step on it.
Hello, Nick.
Yes?
This is April.
Abrams down at headquarters.
Oh, are you?
Say, Nick, we picked up a woman a few minutes ago in David Graham's apartment. She claims she's your wife.
My wife?
Yeah, says her name's Nora. What about it, Nick?
Nora. Oh, sounds like a phony to me. You better put her in the jug till I get down there.
You're the doctor, Nick. In the jug she goes.
Right down here, Mr. Charles.
Thank you, Matron.
Nick, here I am over here.
Well, hello. Fine way to start the new year, getting thrown in the can.
Nicky, get me out of here.
How long has this thing with David been going on?
Oh, Nick, stop that and get me out of here. I've got something to tell you.
About the case?
Yes.
Oh, no. I'll get you out on one condition. No more cases. No more detecting. Promise?
But this is important.
You want me to let her out, Mr. Charles?
Definitely not.
Nicky, please.
Well, promise?
I promise.
All right, let her out, Matron.
Nick, have you been working on the case?
I've been giving it my undivided attention.
What have you found out?
Nothing.
Oh, Nick.
The only new development is that Polly has a brother. Where, we don't know.
What about her and Dancer and Lum Key?
All in the neighborhood at the time of the shooting. We've established that, but we can't prove a thing.
But, Nick, somebody killed him.
Yes, I think that's been proved.
Mrs. Charles?
Yes?
Lieutenant Abrams wants you for questioning.
Questioning? Nicky, they don't think I'm mixed up in this.
Don't worry, darling. If they find you guilty, I'll write you every day.
This way, please.
Nicky.
Now tell me, Mr. Graham, were you and Robert Landis on good terms?
Decidedly not.
On bad terms, Mr. Graham?
Very bad.
You and Mrs. Landis were once engaged, weren't you? Until Landis came along?
Yes.
Ever ask her to divorce him and marry you?
I may have. But she never said she would.
But you hoped she would. And you thought that with him out of the way, she might.
I didn't kill Robert.
No, of course not. But you did pay him to go away.
Yes.
Lieutenant Abrams, my wife.
Oh, come on in. I got to ask her some questions, Mr. Charles. I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Go ahead.
Now, Mrs. Charles, why did you go to Mr. Graham's apartment?
What?
Maybe I'd better leave.
No. Selma had a silly idea that David thought she killed Robert. She wanted me to tell him that she didn't.
Why, I can't imagine how she could think a thing like that. It's ridiculous. I haven't seen her for a couple of days.
Here's Mrs. Landis, boss.
No. Will you come in, Mrs. Landis?
David. Oh, I didn't want you dragged into this.
No, it's all right, dear.
Mrs. Landis, why did Mr. Graham think you killed your husband?
I never said that. I never thought it for 1 minute.
Don't, David. He had every right to think I did it. He's just trying to protect me. He heard a shot. He rushed up to me and saw me standing near Robert with a gun in my hand. But I didn't fire the shot. It came from the street.
You mean you didn't kill him?
No, look at the gun, David. It hasn't been fired.
Oh, Selma, forgive me.
Oh, of course I forgive you.
Well, that's all cleared up. Go on, Nora.
It isn't cleared up as far as I'm concerned. I've got to have something more than that. Where's that gun, Mrs. Landis? I've got to see that gun.
Well, I haven't got it.
What?
Well, David took it from me. David, where's the gun? What is it, David?
Selma, I thought you were guilty. I thought I was doing the only thing. I threw it away.
You threw it away?
I threw it into the river.
Oh, that's marvelous.
Well, they can get it. I'll show them where I threw it. I'll get divers to go down after it. They'll find it. They must.
Boy, she don't want that gun back any more than you do. Hey, Mac, swear out a warrant for the arrest of Mrs. Robert Landis on suspicion of murder.
Nicky, are you awake?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were. Did you say something about scrambled eggs?
No, I didn't. Oh, I suppose that means you'd like me to go up and fix some for you.
Oh, no, I don't care about them.
Sure?
Really?
Good. Good night.
Good night. After all, if I want scrambled eggs, I can get them for myself. Of course, I'm not as good a cook as you are, but... Oh, well, don't bother about me. You go on sleeping. I love to watch you sleep. You look so cute. Nicky, have you any pictures of yourself taken as a baby?
No.
Oh, that's a shame. I wanted to see what you looked like.
I'll have one taken in the morning.
Poor Selma. Poor David. Nicky, can you reach the water?
Huh? Oh. Yes, I suppose so. Yes.
Oh, I didn't want it. I just wanted to be sure you could reach it.
Nora, please go to sleep.
I can't. I keep thinking of Selma down in that jail.
Darling, there's nothing to worry about. Tomorrow they'll find the gun.
they've only been fired, Selma will be free.
Then you don't think she did it?
For the 10th time, no.
You're not saying that just to make me happy. You really mean it?
Yeah, I mean it.
Of course you're right. She didn't do it. She couldn't have done it. I don't think I'd kill you if you ran off with another woman.
Thank you, darling.
I might, though.
Nora, don't be morbid. Go to sleep. What in the name of...
Nick, the window.
Keep your head down.
Nick, somebody smashed the window.
No, really?
Look, there's a rock with a note attached to it. Nicky, a note.
Let's see.
What is it, Nick? What does it say?
Silly little woman, I told her to stop writing to me.
Oh, darling. Please, read it.
Mr. Nick Charles, if you want to know something about the murder of Robert Landis, get a line on Phil Burns, the guy Polly says is her brother. He's an ex-con and was married to Polly in Topeka, Kansas 3 years ago.
Married 3 years ago.
What are we supposed to do, send him an anniversary present? Look at the way this fellow spells Topeka, T-O-P-E-K-E-R.
What's the matter with that?
Nothing, darling. Good night.
Oh, Nick, you can't go back to sleep now. Phone Abrams.
What, and have him here, keeping us up all night?
Well, don't you see? If Phil is her husband, then he shot Robert because he found out about him and Polly. Oh, Nicky, you've got to call him.
Just as you say. Hand me the phone.
Oh, isn't it wonderful? Everything's working out beautifully. All we have to do is find this fellow Phil Burns, and we've got the murderer. Here, darling, call him and tell... Now, who can that be?
Oh?
Hello, Nick. This is Abrams.
Oh, I was just going to call you.
Yeah? Well, maybe you better get down here. You know that guy, Phil Burns, Polly's brother?
Yeah, what about him?
We traced him to his hotel.
You find him?
Yeah, but somebody else found him first. He's been murdered.
Well, there he is. That's the way we found him, Nick. Dead for 2 hours at least. Strangled.
Yeah. Looks like he was beaten up a bit before the strangling set in. Any fingerprints?
All over the place. We're checking on him now.
What else did you find?
Nah, nothing much. He had a .38 in his drawer, 6 bullets in it, and a little dough. Oh, yeah, and this key. I guess it's the key to Polly's apartment. It's got her number stamped on it.
Another good guess would be that Selma Landis didn't do this.
Fair enough. But he wasn't killed the way Landis was either.
Might be a good idea to check the chambers on that .38. He might have fired it and slipped in a new shell.
Okay. Anything else on your mind?
Yes. That key to Polly's apartment. Could I borrow that for an hour?
Sure. Here.
Maybe you better give me a skeleton key, too, just for good measure.
Okay. What are you looking for?
Haven't the faintest idea. Just a hunch. Call you later.
Okay.
Nick, what did you find in there?
Dead man.
Is that all?
Isn't that enough?
Where are we going now?
Well, I don't know about you. I'm going to visit Polly Burns.
At this time of night? Without a chaperone?
Nora, this is purely business.
For me, too. Come on, darling. She's not home. Miss Burns keeps late hours, doesn't she? Nick, where'd you get that key?
From Abrams. It was in Phil Burns' pocket.
Oh. It's good you had an answer for that.
Go on in. Be quiet.
Here's a light switch.
You turn it on?
What do you expect to find in here?
I don't know.
Well, how do I know what to look for?
Don't look for anything. Go over there and sit down.
Suppose she comes in. What do we do?
Tell her it's a surprise party.
Anything in the drawer?
Give me a chance.
Nick, what do you suppose people want a hole in the ceiling?
They don't.
Some people do. Look up there.
Where?
Up there. See. In the corner. A little hole in the plaster. What could that mean?
Well, it might mean that the ceiling's falling down. Or it might...
What?
What's the number of this apartment?
3D.
I wonder who lives in apartment 4D. Let's go upstairs and find out.
Here it is. 4D. This is right over Polly Burns' apartment.
What's the name on the bell?
Anderson. Say, where did you dig up all these keys?
We're going to visit Mr. Anderson.
Or Miss Anderson. It doesn't say which. Anybody home?
Put on the light. Let's see. That hole in the ceiling downstairs was right under this corner. By right, these floorboards ought to be loose. Uh-oh.
I get it. Somebody took this apartment so they could see what went on downstairs.
Exactly.
Look through the hole, Nicky. What do you see? Well?
That's funny.
What is it?
Can't see anything. The hole's been plugged up from the other side.
What? But how?
There's somebody down there now. Somebody who knows about this peephole. Whoever it is plugged it up while we were coming upstairs.
Nick!
You stay here.
No, Nick, it may be the murderer. Nicky, wait.
I've got to see who it is.
Listen. Whoever it is just left. I can hear him going downstairs. Nick, let him go.
No, we've got to catch him before he gets to the street.
Nick, wait for me. Well, did you see who it was?
No. He went through that door at the end of the hall.
That must go to the cellar.
Wait here and don't move.
Nick, be careful. It's black as pitch down there.
Right back, darling. Would you like to come on upstairs? Or do I have to come and get you? All right. Have it your way. Come on, I can see you over there. Come on out or I'll...
Nick, are you all right?
I'm okay. Come on down.
I can't see. Nicky, did he get you?
No, but I didn't get him either. He got out through a window over there.
Oh, darling, I was so scared. Where are you? Oh, put your arms around me, darling. Are you sure you're all right? Oh, Nicky, you're bleeding.
What are you talking about? I'm not bleeding.
Nick, where are you?
I'm here.
Well, then who's this man over here?
You have just heard Act 2 of After the Thin Man with William Powell and Myrna. During this brief intermission before Mr. DeMille presents Act 3, we bring you another story about Mary.
She's washing dishes. Oh, boy, is she mad. I say, look at her hands. They're all red. And coarse. Here, let's see your soap, Mary. Oh, it's harsh. And soap that's harsh pecks away at your hands. No wonder they're red and rough. Here's a friendly tip.
Try New Quick Lux. It's so kind to your hands. So mild, so pure. I want you to hear about our one-hand test of 5 dishwashing soaps, including Lux. Now, here's the story in the words of one of the women who took the test. Mrs. Hugh Rennie of New York. She says,
For 20 minutes, 3 times a day, and that's just about the time I spend doing my own dishes, I dip one hand in Lux suds, and the other in suds from another soap.
Mrs. Rennie took that test for several weeks under conditions similar to home dishwashing. She goes on to say,
At the end of the test, my Lux hand was still nice and smooth, while the other hand was coarse and red. I hadn't realized there was such a difference in dishwashing soaps. I'll never use anything but Lux.
Hundreds of women took that one-hand test with similar results. It proved Lux kindest to hands. Try it yourself and see. Ask for the generous large box of New Quick Lux tomorrow and use it for dishes every day. It's so thrifty. Even in hard water, it gives more suds, ounce for ounce, than any of 10 other leading soaps tested. It's fast, too, yet it costs you no more. Remember, New Quick Lux in the same familiar box. We pause now for station identification. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Curtain rises on Act 3 of After the Thin Man. In the thick blackness of the cellar, Nora has bumped into a man she thought was Nick. Now she discovers her mistake, and Nick rushes to her side. With quick, tense fingers, he strikes a match. There, in the wavering light, a man stands, propped against the wall. As they stare at his gleaming white face, he slumps to the floor at their feet.
Nick!
All right, take it easy.
What's the matter with him? Is he...
Yeah? He's dead. Shot.
But when was he? I've seen that man before.
You know him? Who is he?
Light another match. Quick.
Well?
Of course I know him. His name is Pedro Dominguez. He used to be my father's gardener about 6 years ago.
Your father's gardener? Well, that does a lot of good. Come on, we better call Abrams. What'd you find out, Lieutenant?
Was I right about his name?
Yes, you were, Mrs. Charles. Pedro Dominguez. But he wasn't a gardener anymore. He was janitor of this building. Probably shot about 5 hours before you found him. But here's a very funny thing.
Go ahead, we can stand a laugh right now.
The telephone company tells us that about 11:30 last night, that'd be just before he was shot, someone here called up information and asked for Nick Charles' number.
Our number? What would Pedro Dominguez be calling Nick for?
I don't know. Do you, Nick?
I can't imagine. I haven't even heard his name for 6 years.
Did you remember him when you saw his face?
No.
That's funny, seeing he used to be Mrs. Charles' gardener.
Who remembers a gardener unless he squirts a hose at you?
Did you recognize him right away, Mrs. Charles?
I had to look twice. He's a lot grayer than he used to be.
Hey, by the way, what did you find out about the person in the apartment over Polly Burns?
Not a thing. Not a fingerprint in the place. Not a stitch of clothes. Only a hunk of lead pipe and a ladder.
Piece of lead pipe and a ladder. That's interesting. Anything in Pedro's books?
No, just that someone named Anderson took the apartment a week ago, paid cash in advance.
That's all, huh?
That's all. And the name is Anderson. No front name. No Mr., Mrs., or Miss.
That's just dandy. You know, I got a feeling that if we could just find out who took that room, we might have our murderer.
Well, what do you think we ought to do?
Get them all together in the Anderson apartment. Everyone that's mixed up in this. Let's shake them all up and see what happens.
You're on.
Are you going to take the murderer tonight?
Yeah, we're going to try.
How are you going to do it, Nicky?
I haven't the slightest idea. I'm just going to listen. Pray that somebody makes a slip. Just one slip. Lieutenant, you get them all here?
All set and waiting, Nick. Picked up Dancer and Lumkey at the Lychee. Polly was with them. Then there's that David Graham guy and your wife's cousin, Selma Lambert.
Anyone else?
Yeah, a fat dame they call Aunt Catherine. I brought her along for luck.
Swell.
Oh, say, before you go in, I checked Phil Burns' apartment. Dancer's fingerprints were all over the joint.
Dancer's, you sure?
Sure, I'm sure.
You haven't told him, have you?
Not yet.
All right, don't.
What's your plan, Nick?
Build up a case against each of them. Throw all we've got at them and throw it hard enough to bounce.
I'll make it bounce all right.
And keep them talking.
Nick, come on. The party's getting dull.
Coming? Evening. Shut that door, please, Lieutenant.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I asked you all down here because we've just found that another murder has been committed. He's a man I think you all know. Pedro Dominguez.
Pedro killed?
Yes. What do you know about it, Polly?
Nothing. I only saw him a couple of times when I went down to pay my rent.
What about you, Dancer? You're in and out of this apartment. You must have known him.
Sure, I know him. So what?
You, Lumkey?
I never been this house before.
You knew him, Selma.
Well, no, I don't think
You remember Selma? He was our gardener 6 years ago.
Oh.
David, you remember Pedro Dominguez?
Yes, vaguely. A man with long white mustaches.
What did you know about him, Mr. Graham?
Nothing. That was 6 years ago. I haven't seen him since.
Nicholas, I can't see what possible connection this can have with us.
It's very simple, Aunt Catherine. You see, Pedro and Robert were both shot with the same gun.
Oh, I have nothing to do with it.
Now, there was some monkey business going on we want to find out about. Seems that 1 week ago, Pedro rented an apartment to someone calling himself or herself Anderson. Did you ever see this Anderson, Polly?
No.
Did you ever hear anyone in the apartment just over you?
No.
I thought not. This Anderson intended to climb down into your apartment one night with the aid of a ladder and polish off Robert with this lead pipe. Then he was going to climb up to his place again and leave you holding the bag for Robert's murder. Now, Do you know anyone who would be interested enough in you to do that?
Why, no.
You're Dancer's girl, aren't you?
I work for him.
That's not what he asked.
Well?
Did Dancer know that you were going away with Robert?
Why?
Come on. You told us before.
You said you'd keep that a secret. I'll never trust a cop again.
You made a dicker with the police, okay, Polly. But that ladder stuff's a lot of malarkey, Nick. No one did come down that ladder, and Landis wasn't killed in her place.
The only reason the murderer didn't kill him that way was because he was found out. Pedro came in yesterday to clean up Anderson's apartment and discovered the loose boards on the floor. He didn't like the looks of things, so he put a new lock on the door. When Anderson came in, he found he was locked out. He heard Pedro telephoning me, and he killed him.
So what?
So, who is Anderson?
I'll bite. Who?
Polly. Phil had a key to your apartment, and Dancer had one.
Yeah.
Who else?
Nobody.
He's trying to hang this murder up on us to protect his own family. That Selma dame. She knocked her husband off. Everybody knows that.
I didn't.
And then you got your boyfriend, David, to throw away the gun.
That's a lie.
Now, just a minute, please. Look, Dancer, let's come clean. You and Polly and Lum Key were out to shake Robert Landis down for $25,000, right?
Oh, sure. Then I suppose I knock him off and stir up all this fuss before I get the dough. What kind of a stumble bum does that make me out to be?
You're the kind of a stumble bum that left your fingerprints all over the room when you killed Phil Burns.
Phil's dead?
Yes, strangled.
Well, I didn't do it.
Then why did you go to his place?
Because I thought he'd gummed up my game. I figured he'd try to stick up Landis and had to kill him. So I pushed him around a little to learn the manners. And when I left him, he had a split lip and a couple of dents in him. But he was just as much alive as you are, if that means anything.
Polly, who knew Phil was your husband?
What?
You were married, weren't you?
Yeah, but...
So Phil was your husband?
As if you didn't know.
I never knew till now. But I wish I had, Polly.
Didn't you ever tell anyone that you were married, Polly?
No.
Would Phil have told?
No.
Did you and Phil talk about it?
Yeah, one night last week. But no one could have heard. We were alone, down in my room.
Alone? Don't forget Anderson could hear everything that went on in your room. Lieutenant, when was Phil Burns killed?
Oh, about 2, near as we can figure.
At 3:30, Anderson threw this note in at my window. He was beginning to use some of the information he'd gathered while he was up here. Dancer, how do you spell Topeka?
None of your business.
This note is a poor attempt at illiteracy. The easy words are spelled wrong and the tough ones right. Like to see it, Lumpkey? It was meant just to steer me down to Phil's place to find his body. And your fingerprints, Dancer. Someone's framing you, Dancer.
Yeah?
You say you don't know this Pedro, Lumpkey?
No.
Well, I've got a picture of him right here. This picture was taken about 6 years ago when...
Nick, what is it?
Nothing. Except that all this time I've been waiting for someone to make a slip. And someone has made it.
Who?
We've been wrong. This wasn't a killing for money. It was a murder of hatred. Revenge. Polly, what did Phil go to the pen for?
Blackmail.
Blackmail. David, when were you supposed to give Robert the money to go away?
This morning.
In cash?
Yes.
But when he decided to go last night, you had to give him bonds.
Yes.
Where were you going to get cash on New Year's Day? A bank holiday?
Funny, I forgot about that.
No, you didn't, David. You never meant to give Robert that money. You didn't want him to go away. You wanted to kill him. You were going to get even with him for taking Selma away from you.
Nora, is he fooling?
Sure. And you were fooling when you said you hadn't seen Pedro for 6 years. You said Pedro had long white mustaches. Well, he's got long white mustaches now. But look at this picture. There he is 6 years ago. His mustache was neither white nor long. You didn't notice him 6 years ago any more than I did. You remember him as he was last night when you shot him. You killed him, and then you killed Robert. Phil saw you do it. He was going to blackmail you, so you had to kill him, too. And then you threw that note in my window, hoping to put me off your trail.
David, don't let him say these terrible things. Tell him it isn't true.
Ask him why he threw away your gun, Selma. He knew it hadn't been fired. He knew you only had to show it to prove your innocence. Yet he threw it away. Ask him why he did that.
David, why don't you speak?
Wasn't it because you hated her as much as Robert? Wasn't it because you wanted to get even with her, too? Wasn't it because you wanted to see her hang for Robert's murder?
David.
Tell her the truth now, David. You don't have to pretend anymore.
That is the truth. I've hated you, Selma and Robert, ever since you threw me over for him. I've been watching, waiting for the time when I could get even with you for having ruined my life. I did kill Robert, but not the way I wanted to. It was too easy, too quick. I wanted to see him suffer the way he'd made me suffer. And you, I wanted to see you go gradually madder and madder as the day came when you were going to hang. Well, I'm not going to see you hang, but I'm still going to see you die.
Put out that gun.
Don't be a fool, David. Get out of the way. I've got 6 bullets. 1 for her and 1 for myself. And the rest for anyone who tries to stop me. Get out of the way, Charles. Go out of my way.
I get him. Okay, Graham. I'll take that gun now.
Nice work, Lumkey. Nice work.
Nick, he saved you. And you sent his brother up.
Oh, sure. Mr. Charles sent him up. #1 detective. I don't like my brother. I like his girl. I'm your friend. Oh, you bet you.
Tired, darling?
Not very.
Well, can you believe it? We're alone. No reporters, no friends, no surprises.
I suppose we really should decide where we're going.
Oh, do you care?
No. But I haven't any clothes.
All the better. You won't have to pack. All I need in the world is you and a toothbrush. Hey, what's that you're doing?
I'm knitting something.
Oh, you haven't gotten very far with it.
Yes, I have. There. It's done.
Done? Why, hey, that looks like... Is that a baby's sock?
And you call yourself a detective.
Why, Mrs. Charles. We draw the curtain on After the Thin Man. In a moment, Mr. DeMille returns with our stars. While we're waiting, let's talk about babies. You know, families often speculate on the chances of the stork bringing twins or triplets. Well, here are some figures that may interest you. The chances of having twins is about 1 in 84. Of having triplets, 1 in 7,500. That makes triplets a pretty rare occurrence. Mrs. Frances Bardall of Holbrook, Massachusetts, was one of the mothers who drew the lucky number in 1939, and she's doubly lucky now because she has new quick lucks to help her in caring for her 3 small babies. She says,
"The triplets have such sensitive skins, I wouldn't dream of washing their clothes in harsh soaps or rubbing them with cake soap. I just won't take chances on having woolens or diapers getting rough and scratchy."
She's a wise mother, isn't she? She goes on to say,
"New Quick Lux is so mild and gentle. It's the only thing I'd use for the baby's clothes. It's so safe for everything, safe in water alone. I can depend on it never to make woolens harsh and scratchy or fade the pretty colors of little dresses and sunsuits."
yes, New Quick Lux is so wonderfully gentle. And so easy to use, too. So fast. In water as cool as your hand, it dissolves 3 times as fast as any of 10 of the leading soaps tested. Ask for the generous big box of New Quick Lux tomorrow. It comes in the same familiar package and costs you no more. Here's Mr. DeMille with our stars.
As Bill Powell and Myrna return to the microphone, we offer our congratulations to the Thin Man on some first-class detective work.
Cecil, you're seldom wrong, but I'll have to mark that one up against you. However, if it's any consolation, everybody makes the same mistake.
Brace yourself for a shock, Mr. DeMille. Bill is not and never was the Thin Man.
He isn't. He never has been. Mercy, Myrna, can't we even believe what we see in the movies?
Just for the record, the Thin Man was murdered in the first Thin Man picture. We haven't seen him since.
Except in the title, where he seems amazingly healthy.
What's in the name? Call the picture by any name you like, so long as you and Bill remain as our favorite detectives. What's going to happen next to Nora and Nick?
Well, there's another Thin Man picture planned, but we haven't started making it yet.
It's called The Shadow of the Thin Man. Very promising manhunt.
I have entire confidence in both of you.
By the way, Cecil, didn't I hear you say that you're going to do Showboat next week?
You certainly did, Bill, and we are.
Who's going to be in your cast, Mr. DeMille?
We'll have Irene Dunn, Alan Jones, and Charles Winninger. They were all in the cast of the motion picture, and they'll all be here on this stage to bring us the exciting drama of Showboat and the great song hits by Jerome Kern. We embark at the usual time next Monday night for this cruise of adventure and romance along the Mississippi, and we hope you'll all be on board.
Showboat is practically a command to listen. Good night, Cecil.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. We'll call you two on another case soon. Our sponsors, the makers of Lux Flakes, join me in inviting you to be with us again next Monday night when the Lux Radio Theater presents Irene Dunn, Alan Jones, and Charles Winninger in Showboat. This is Cecil B. DeMille saying good night to you from Hollywood.
Heard in tonight's play were Julie Bannon as Selma, Fred Mackay as David, Edward Marr as Abrams, Mary Lou Simpson as Polly, Warren Ash as Dancer, Wally Mayer as Lum Key, and Arthur Q. Bryan, Abe Reynolds, Walter White, Inez Seabury, Tristan Coffin, Eric Snowden, Russell Fillmore, Lou Merrill, and Fred Shields. The American Red Cross needs millions of dollars for European war relief work. They're asking for your contribution now. Anything you can give. The place to give, your local Red Cross chapter. The time, as soon as you possibly can. William Powell and Myrna Loy appeared tonight through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. They will soon be seen together on the screen in If I Love You Again. Our music was directed by Louis Silvers, and your announcer has been Melville Ruick. Is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. It was interesting to hear the voice. It's always interesting to hear the voice of Cecil B. DeMille. Growing up, I knew of Cecil B. DeMille from standing in front at the in the movie The Ten Commandments. I believe he's in that introductory scene, and of course was the producer of that great film. But through Lux, you get to appreciate particularly his role in bringing great films to radio, and he had a lot of fun during his run on the Lux Radio Theater. This, by the way, I have to say, was about the perfect comedy mystery. It is really a tough formula to get right. And usually either the comedy or the mystery will suffer a little bit. But this one was just so right, so perfect and well done. And while the original Thin Man movie might be better than After the Thin Man, I thought this was better done overall in terms of this radio experience. I laughed a lot, and I found the mystery incredibly engaging. Wally Mayer was interesting appearing in this role of Lum Key, which was not something I would normally associate with Wally Mayer, because usually his voice on the radio sounds about the same. I definitely look forward to, once I get through with the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes movies, taking a look at the rest of these Thin Man films to find out what happens to Nick and Nora, particularly with the baby. But next week, we'll actually take a look at the radio series. There'll be half-hour shows, not unfortunately with William Powell and Myrna Loy. But still, I hope you'll find them interesting and engaging. We do have one comment from Melissa, who says, "Love the Thin Man." Thanks, Adam. Regarding one of the trailers that we posted, the trailer for the original Thin Man film. And I hope a lot more people love the Thin Man after these 2 weeks, and as well as we continue into the next few weeks of Thin Man radio adventures. But that'll do it for now. Well, last week we talked a lot about the Father Brown stories in general. We didn't actually get to discuss at all the lead actor is Karl Swenson. Now, those of you who are fans of Little House on the Prairie would know Karl Swenson best for his role as Mr. Hanson. But he had a very long career, including 2 old-time radio detective shows where he played the lead. Father Brown and also Mr. Chameleon. Ironically, even though Mr. Chameleon ran for much longer, there are only 2 episodes of Mr. Chameleon. We'll bring them to you eventually. But we'll get into today's episode of Father Brown in just a second. Before we do get started, I do want to let you know about the entertainment books. They're a great way to allow you to save money and to sample some of your local merchants. The entertainment books come complete with a wide variety of discounts on entertainment, dry cleaning, groceries, restaurants, and even more. Check out the entertainment book in your area by going to entertainment.greatdetectives.net. They also make great Christmas gifts and also can be nice if you're going somewhere on vacation. Be able to see the city and also to save some money. Well, let's get into today's episode of Father Brown, The Mystified Mind.
Mutual Broadcasting System presents The Adventures of Father Brown. From the exciting pages of G.K. Chesterton comes the best-loved detective of them all, Father Brown, played by Karl Swenson. Now for tonight's adventures, The Mystified Mind. It is just after lunch on a hot August afternoon, and Father Brown sits at his desk in the study of his modest parish house. He's deep in his notebooks and monthly records. Father Brown doesn't look up at the sound of the doorbell. Nora, the housekeeper, comes along the corridor past the study door.
Pity they can't leave him alone just for once.
Hello, Nora.
Oh, it's you, Flambeau.
Yes. Is Father Brown in? I've brought someone to see him. This is Miss Harris, Nora.
Good afternoon, Nora. Flambeau told me about you. Nothing good, I warrant. Well, if you must see Father Brown, you must. He's in his study.
Oh, thank you, Nora. This way, Miss Harris. You know, Nora's bark is much worse than her bite. Hello, Father Brown.
Well, Flambeau. My, this is a pleasure.
I've brought someone to see you, Father. This is Miss Joyce Harridge.
Well, come in, my dear. Come in. Pull up that comfortable chair for Miss Harris, Flambeau.
I'm afraid we're disturbing you, Father.
One of man's greatest pleasures is to be disturbed at his work. There, sit down, my dear.
Thank you, Father.
Miss Harridge has brought me a case, Father, which I think is more up your alley than mine.
Oh.
The fact is, we're on our way now to talk to a murderer in his cell.
Oh. And what makes you think, Miss Harris, that this man you call a murderer is not guilty?
Why, how do you know I think that, Father?
Well, because Flambeau is a detective. And the only use a man charged with murder has for a detective is to prove his innocence.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, Father. But I'm afraid there isn't much I can do. It looks like an open and shut case.
You know, I have never understood the meaning of that phrase, Flambeau. To be both open and shut is a paradox. Well, now suppose, my dear, that you tell me about the man in the cell whom someone has called a murderer.
Well, to begin with, Father, Trail Engineers. Rollins' offices are located on the 17th floor of the Jefferson Building. The whole thing happened last Thursday morning, just after I arrived at the office.
I see. Well, go on.
Well, every Thursday morning, just as our office opens, a man comes in to clean the windows. His name is Luigi Conti. We've all gotten to know him well over the years because his daughter was in Keller. I just got into the office last week. Good morning, Miss Harris. You know, I've sent you not to come to work.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Mr. Clayton.
Hello, darling.
Oh, just think what it would be like at the beach today.
I guess the sick grandmother gag has worn itself out. Let's plan the beach for the weekend, though, huh?
Oh, yes, I'd love it.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Gregory.
Good morning.
Whether it's good or not is a matter of your own personal feeling. If you're waiting to get into the vault, it's only 3. The time lock won't work for another 2 minutes.
When I first came to work here, I was convinced Holmes. It wasn't until I began getting here on time that I discovered he actually lived in the outside world.
Uh-oh. Well, I want to talk to you about the Kennedy job after I've gone through the mail, Clayton.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there's the window cleaner. You know it's gotten so you can tell time by Luigi.
Joyce, yes. You know, that's a job I wouldn't like to have.
What?
Luigi. It does something to the pit of my stomach when I see him climb out on that.
I'm used to it. There's really no danger with one of those safety belts.
The window cleaner! He's fallen!
It's Luigi. One side of his belt gave way. Just hanging there. Mr. Allen, help me. Mr. Allen!
Quick, Gregory! Fallen all the way to the street.
Papa! Papa!
Don't look, Lisa. You mustn't look, my dear. Dreadful accident.
Accident! Look, Pa, the belt's still hanging there. It's been cut through. Not an accident. Tony did it.
Tony? You mustn't say that.
Tony did it, I tell you. I know it. Tony did it.
That's the whole crux of the case, Father. It was murder, all right, because Luigi's safety belt had been cut through with a razor blade.
Oh, my.
So that the minute he threw his weight against it, it gave way.
And the man that Lisa accused, the man she called Tony.
That's Anthony Cremona, Father.
Uh-huh.
He's been arrested and charged with the murder. He was Luigi's assistant at the Jefferson Building.
And he was nuts about Luigi's daughter.
Well, why did the girl jump so quickly to the conclusion that it was this boy who had cut the safety belt?
Well, apparently because the old man and the boy were constantly arguing and fighting. There were threats and counter-threats.
I see.
Father, Luigi was terribly proud of Lisa. Every cent he'd earned had gone for her education and business school. He thought Tony wasn't good enough for her. He was dead set against anything serious developing between them.
Their window cleaning equipment in a closet, and both Tony and Luigi had a key to it. Young Tony had plenty of opportunity to slice the belt with a razor blade. As far as the cops are concerned, that's all there is to it.
Yes. Well, is that all the evidence against him, Flambeau?
That's all the police have found, Father.
No, that's just too black and white. There are no shadings, no coloring. People are not so simple as a first-grade problem in arithmetic, you know.
Well, Father, I've gotten to know Tony a little in the last year.
Oh?
He'd been so anxious to marry Lisa, he's been working like a Trojan to better himself. Going to night school, studying engineering.
Father, Miss Harridge has an interesting point to make.
Oh.
Well, it's simply this, Father Brown. If Tony had struck down Lisa's father in the midst of one of their arguments, it would fit his character, his hot temper.
Yes, but cutting through the belt was a cold and character, is that it?
Yes, Father.
That's it. I think we should not put off going to see Anthony Cremona in this terrace.
No, but the trouble is he won't see anyone. He won't talk to a lawyer, he won't see Miss Harridge, and he won't see me.
We thought that maybe with you, he might feel differently.
Well, sometimes injustice will turn a man's face away from all other men. We can only try, Miss Harriet. We can only try.
Cremona's cell is at the end of this block, Father.
Thank you, sir. Flambeau, would you and Miss Harriet wait here?
Yes, Father Brown.
Someone to see you, Cremona.
I don't want to see anybody.
Tony, I didn't know they sent a priest to see you till just before the hanging. But there are two kinds of hanging, Tony. The hanging that takes place in the minds of men, and the hanging that takes place at the end of a rope. A priest may be valuable in both cases. Well, I can't stop you from talking to me if you want to. You may open the cell door for me, Sergeant.
Holler when you want to get out, Father.
All right, thank you.
Now, look, if this is some kind of a trick to get me to change my story.
Since I haven't heard your story, Tony, why should I ask you to change it?
Well, maybe it don't sound like much. Can't change the truth.
And who is it that doesn't believe it?
The police? Lisa.
You know something, Father? The minute it happened, the very minute it happened, Lisa shouted out my name.
Yes, but you had threatened her father, hadn't you, Karl?
Sure, I threatened him. He was a stubborn, narrow-minded old fool. But I had a suit of clothes from a fine tailor and plenty of dough in my pocket. He'd have thought I was the right guy.
Yes, Tony?
Father, Lisa hasn't even been to see me. She hasn't given me a chance. You think she'd at least be on my side of it, wouldn't you?
Well, what is your side of it, my son?
I never touched Luigi's safety belt. Kept our stuff in the same closet, but I never touched his belt.
Well, go on, Tom.
If I was going to murder Luigi, I wouldn't have been satisfied with cutting just one side of his belt.
No?
No. But the belt should have held him up, even when one side gave way. It was an accident the other side of the belt didn't hold. No window cleaner would have cut just one side of the belt if he wanted Luigi to fall. What's the use of my telling him that?
Maybe a great deal of use, Tony. You see, there's a bitterness in your heart that's keeping a cloud in front of your eyes. You have friends, you know.
Friends?
Oh, well, there's Miss Harris, the policeman. Miss Lambeau, the detective hired to clear you of this charge. And there's me, Tony.
Do you mean that, Father?
Yes.
You really mean it?
Well, of course I do.
Well, then, if you see Lisa, will you tell her?
What?
Will you tell her there are still people that don't go around accusing a man without giving him a hearing?
Well, Father, would he talk to you?
Yes, Lambeau, he talked with me.
What do you think, Father?
Sometimes the things I think are frightening, even to me. Sometimes I wish I could give up the whole business of thinking.
Then you think Tony is guilty?
No, Miss Haddis, I think he's innocent.
But in that case, Father...
But thinking it isn't proven. Now, I'd like to go to your office. I'd like to see the place where this accident happened.
Accident? Now, Father, I've seen these tricks pulled before, and cutting a safety belt is...
I have a passion for accuracy, Lambeau. I called it an accident because it was an accident. Tragic accident. You see, the window cleaner, Luigi, was never meant to die.
But, Father...
Now, let's not waste time, Lambeau. I have an urgent curiosity to lay eyes on the criminal, and he's not in the cell at the city jail. And it's entirely possible that we'll find him at the office of Rollins and Keller. May God have mercy on him. And this is the office where it happened, eh, Miss Haddis?
Yes, Father. There's only this one large drafting room and Mr. Rollins' private office.
I see. That's the vault that you spoke of.
Yes, it is. Old Gregory sits there by the wicket, and nobody goes in or out of the vault without being checked by him.
Oh, what's so valuable in the vault?
Oh, chiefly blueprints. We do a lot of work for the government. All very hush-hush.
Now, which is the window from which Luigi fell?
Oh, that one over there, at the far end of the office.
Ah, yes, it would be at the far end. Miss Haddis, I think I should talk to your employer, Mr. Rollins.
Very well, Father. His office is right over here.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Mr. Rollins.
What? Oh, come in.
Mr. Rollins, this is Father Brown and Flambeau. They'd like to talk to you for a moment.
Come in, come in.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'll get back to my drawing board.
Yes, Miss Harris. Well, gentlemen, what can I do for you? We've come about the window cleaner who was murdered.
On the contrary, Mr. Rollins, we've come about the vault that was robbed.
Well, gentlemen, make up your minds.
I'm sorry to have to tell you that valuable designs or blueprints are missing from your vault.
Well, I don't know what this is all about, gentlemen, but I can assure you there's nothing missing from the vault. You see, it works on a time mechanism. It opens at 5 minutes past 9 in the morning and closes at 5 minutes to 5 at night. All day long, Gregory sits outside the gate and nothing can be taken without his knowing it. I trust Gregory with anything I have.
With your money, Mr. Rollins?
With more than that, Father Brown. There's secrets in that vault that money could not buy back.
Well, I only hope that whatever was stolen is still missing.
Oh, really, Father? First you tell me I've been robbed,
And then you wish me bad luck on top of it.
Now, if I worked in your office and someone offered me a great deal of money for one of the blueprints in your vault, this is what I do. I take the blueprint, have it photostated, and then return it to the vault. And if I was lucky enough to get back in time, you'd never know you'd been betrayed, Mr. Rollins.
That would be a way to do it.
Father, look in the vault, Mr. Rollins. Don't let anyone know what you're looking for. And if you find anything missing, come back and tell me, but no one else.
This is really ridiculous.
Look, Mr. Rollins.
All right. I will look. Will you gentlemen wait here?
Thank you.
Of course, I'm really an innocent bystander, but if it wouldn't be too much trouble to explain...
Yeah, but the trouble doesn't lie in the explanation, Flambeau. The trouble lies in catching a peculiarly subtle thief.
Murderer.
That's the point, Flambeau. There was no murderer. By intent.
And how was Luigi supposed to fall 17 stories to the street without dying, Father?
He wasn't supposed to fall. The other side of his belt should have held him up.
But what could be the purpose in it?
The everlasting greed of man, Flambeau. That was the motive. The purpose in cutting Luigi's belt was purely and simply to distract attention from the vault. That's an old magician's trick. Distract attention from what's really happening. Everyone was at the window.
Yeah, by George, it would work.
Certainly.
If the thief knew exactly where the blueprint he wanted was kept in the vault, it would only take him a matter of seconds.
Precisely, Flambeau. And with everyone's attention riveted in another direction...
You were right, Father Brown. Secret designs for a new jet-propelled plane gone. We must notify the police at once.
Not if you want the plans back.
What?
If the thief doesn't know that you've discovered the theft, he'll try to put them back.
But how do we catch him, Father? If we watch the vault, he won't go in. And if we don't watch the vault, we won't know who puts the plans back.
I think I can find an answer to that riddle.
How?
By committing a crime, Flambeau.
What are you doing here, Father Brown?
Oh, I'm just sitting on this bench, Miss Harridge.
I saw Flambeau leave, but why are you sitting here?
Well, you see, to understand why a criminal acts as he does, one must know exactly how he feels. One must, so to speak, get inside of him, understand his every thought. When I've done this, when I've reached the point of committing the crime myself, then I know who the criminal is.
Well, that sounds complicated.
Understanding the human mind is the most complicated of all sciences, Miss Harridge. Now, take yourself, for example. Your interest in young Tony Cremona. Is it just ordinary human kindness? Or is it personal and intimate?
It's just that he's a nice boy who's being blamed for something I don't think he did.
I see. And, is there no one else here who feels the same as you?
I know Jim Clayton.
I'd like to talk to this Mr. Clayton of yours, may I?
Yes, I'll call him. Jim?
Yes?
Jim, this is Father Brown.
Oh, hello, Father.
How do you do?
Joyce has been telling me that you feel the same way as we do about Tony Cremona.
Well, unfortunately, just feeling something will not help him.
Yes, I know. The trouble is, there aren't any clues that point in any other direction.
That's what makes it such a clever crime. But just because a man points in a certain direction, Mr. Clayton, doesn't mean that we must walk in that direction. So I am stubbornly walking in all the other directions, if you see what I mean.
Here's a telegram for you, Father Brown.
But the telegram? Well, now that's odd. It's very odd. Advise you leave office of Rollins and Keller and don't come back. Well.
Father Brown.
Yes?
I'm Lisa Conte. I know why you're here.
Oh, do you now? Because I don't know why you're here, Lisa.
I work here. What else should I be?
Well, you might be in a cell at the city jail, Talking to a nice young man who's eating out his heart because of you.
Talking to a murderer, you mean?
And where is your authority for judging, Lisa? Even a court of law will listen to young Tony's story.
He threatened to kill Papa. He did it. They hang him, I'll stand and watch it and be glad.
Then you should be happy now, Lisa. Because you've already done the only hanging that'll cause him any pain.
But, Father Brown, I tell you...
A person who will not listen even to a lie cannot have much to tell anyone, Lisa. Because what can she know that's either true or false? Tell me, who delivered this telegram?
Oh, it was delivered by a regular messenger, Father.
I see. Here, read it.
What? It's a threat against you, Father Brown.
Do you think the police allowed Tony to send me that telegram from his cell in the city jail?
No.
They tell me, Lisa, that it's possible to visit the jail at any time, day or night. I beg your pardon, but you're Mr. Gregory, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you know the mechanism of that vault fascinates me? It's closed for the night now?
Yes.
I see. You mean to say that no one can open it until morning?
Not till 5 minutes past 9 tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. You're certain?
There's no way on earth to open it till then.
Well, now, you may think it odd for me to have this turn of mind, Mr. Gregory, but suppose a thief were to walk into the vault in broad daylight and come out with something he had no right to have.
I'd stop him.
Oh, but suppose he was a monstrous big man, Mr. Gregory, who could pick you up and put you aside like a child.
Then I'd shoot him. You see, I keep a gun in this desk drawer.
Oh, my. Yes. Well, now, suppose that you weren't at your post, Mr. Gregory.
I'm always at my post.
Always?
Always.
Well, that's an interesting speculation, Mr. Gregory. Good night. Yeah. I'll see you in the morning, just before you open your wonderful vault.
You're coming back again tomorrow?
Oh, yes. Unless, of course, I should receive a visit from a murderer before that time.
Oh, there you are, Father. I thought you were never going to get home.
Graham Flambeau. I've been warned to give up my innocent bench sitting at Rollins and Keller. Here, you can see for yourself.
Oh, so that's the way the wind blows.
Well, at any rate, it's a wind, Flambeau, but I'm frank to say that I don't know from what direction it blows. Oh, excuse me, Flambeau. Father Brown speaking.
Okay, then listen.
Who is this?
Never mind who it is. The boy won't hang if you mind your own business.
Well, what's that?
You got the telegram?
Yes, I got it. Did you send it?
Never mind who sent it. It's good advice. Now, you stay away from Rollins and Keller, you understand? Stay away.
Hello? Hello? Well, now, we seem to be getting warm, Flambeau. That was another warning to stay away from Rollins and Keller.
Oh? What are you going to do?
Return, of course. Tomorrow.
But, Father, the thief won't put the plans back while you're watching the vault.
He'll put them back tomorrow morning, Flambeau.
Well, what makes you think so?
It's not a matter of thinking. I know it. And I know when, Flambeau. He'll put the plans back in the vault at exactly 10 minutes past 9.
Floor, please.
17, please. Well, what's the matter, Father? You look worried.
We've drawn this a touch fine, Flambeau. It's already 1 minute past 9.
Well, unless the elevator breaks down.
Oh, don't even think such a thought, Flambeau. Don't even think.
17.
Well, we made it.
Oh, Father Brown.
Oh, good morning, Lisa.
Father, I went to see Tony last night.
Did you now?
Father, I don't know what I could have been thinking of when I talked to him, when I saw him.
He's a good boy, Lisa. A good, honest boy who holds you very high in his heart. And I'm sure there's less pain in it now from having seen you.
3 minutes past 9, Father.
Oh, yes. Excuse me. Come along, Flambeau.
Good morning, Father Brown.
Good morning, Miss Harris. Good morning, Mr. Clayton.
Hello, Father.
I hope to be here in time to see the vault mechanism.
Well, you hit it right on the nose, Father. There's Gregory standing by now.
I see you did come back.
Yes, I came back, Mr. Gregory. Well, now, how does this vault of yours work?
In 30 seconds, I open the door.
You mean to say there's no ringing of bells? No fanfare of trumpets?
No. I just open the door. Like this.
Well, now, Mr. Gregory, I am disappointed. Somehow I expected more drama.
Here comes Mr. Rollins, Father.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Rollins.
Father Brown, I simply can't hold off going to the police any longer. I have a responsibility to the government. Those plans...
Those plans, Mr. Rollins, will be in your hands in a very few minutes.
You know who took them?
Oh, you might say that I do. Well, what time is it, Flambeau?
7 minutes past 9, Father.
Well, then there's no use delaying. Flambeau, please take those very efficient handcuffs from your pocket and put them on Mr. Gregory.
Gregory? Why, that's
Arrest
impossible.
Mr. Gregory, Flambeau.
Well, it's your party, Father. All right, Gregory, hold out your hand.
This is insane. I tell you, you're all insane. I had nothing to do with that window cleaner's death.
You're charged with stealing important plans from the vault, Gregory.
That's not true. You know that's not true, don't you, Mr. Rollins?
Plans have been stolen from the vault, Gregory, but I think this is a mistake. I can't believe that you had anything to do with it.
I back Gregory to the limit, too. Nothing could be taken from the vault without Gregory's connivance. He says he never left his post here.
No.
Well, if he didn't, then he's a thief. Come along, Gregory.
Now, really, Father Brown, Gregory's been with us 30 years.
There's no doubt about
it. Gregory's on the level.
Well, maybe he is. If Father Brown says to copy, my copy.
Father Brown, what are you doing here in the vault?
Waiting, Miss Harris. Waiting for you to bring back the plan.
So you knew.
Well,
How did you know?
Well, I didn't. Not really.
But...
All I knew was that the thief would come into the vault. You see, Miss Harris, you fell for your own trick.
Trick?
The window cleaner was your trick for distracting attention from the vault. Mr. Gregory was my trick for doing the same.
So that was it.
I confess that when you walked in here, I was a little puzzled. After the telegram and the man's voice on the telephone warning me not to come back here.
Man's voice?
Yes, I rather think that your fiancé, Mr. Clayton, has suspected all along that you were guilty.
Oh.
And he tried to frighten me off. Why did you do it, Miss Harris?
Jim and I wanted to get married. He said he didn't have enough money. Then I was offered a big sum to steal one of the blueprints for just a few hours, just long enough for it to be photostated. Then I could put it back and no one would be the wiser.
I see. But everything went wrong. First Luigi was killed.
Oh, Father, I swear I never meant that to happen.
Yes, but it did happen. And then when Tony was arrested, you went to Flambeau.
I wish I knew why. I wish I knew why I went to Flambeau in the first place.
Because no person is all bad or all good. You knew that Tony was innocent, and the goodness in you forced you to do something to help him. The strange twist that you must now forfeit your freedom, perhaps your life, only because you were not all bad.
Oh, help me, Father. Please help me.
Yes. Yes, I'll help you. But we must begin by facing the music. Come along, Miss Harris.
Next week, The Prophecy of Doom, an exciting adventure in which a world-famous mind reader prophesies the death of a famous inventor at a moment to be decided by a watch that cannot tell time. The Adventures of Father Brown, based on the stories by G.K. Chesterton, was produced by Francis Sherling Oliver and directed by William M. Sweets. Karl Swenson was Father Brown, and the cast included Barry Thompson, Mitzi Gould, Bobby Reddick, Bill Griffiths, Will Geer, Gretchen Davidson, Vinton Hayworth, and Gladys Thornton. The script was by Judson Phillips, and the music by Bill Wurgis. John Stanley speaking. Americans everywhere, please listen, and seafaring men especially. Experienced seamen are now needed to man cargo and waters. This means you, if you're an oiler, water tender, mate, or engineer. Every available man of the sea is needed to keep every fighting man at the front well supplied. Join the Merchant Marine as soon as possible. Upgrading is faster than ever before. Wire your name, address, and classification today. Collect to Merchant Marine, Washington, D.C. Standby pay begins immediately upon acceptance. This announcement from the Warshipping Administration is brought to you as a public service. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this was a pretty good mystery. I do have to say it doesn't quite have the feel of a traditional Father Brown story. And it may be that it was not as philosophically deep as most of Chesterton's stories were. But that may have been one of the great barriers to the show having a long life in old-time radio. Chesterton perhaps just not as easily to adapt to these stories, not actually based on the original work. A lot of logs actually put the length of the Father Brown mysteries on the air at around 8 weeks only. I do have to wonder if that is accurate, because it does seem that if you only had an 8-week series, that just like when NBC did a short Philip Marlowe series a couple years later in the summer of 47, that they just stick to Raymond Chandler stories or stories about Philip Marlowe. So we have a lack of information on this series. Hopefully we'll get more information and, better yet, more episodes. And if we do, we'll bring them to you here. Well, next week, you voted, you decided, and we will honor your choice as we begin into Nero Wolfe. You won't want to miss it. Before we get into today's episode of Let George Do It, I do want to ever so briefly let you know about Audible. Audible has nearly 85,000 titles, both fiction and non-fiction. So you can relax and enjoy the latest best New York Times bestseller, or cozy up to a Nero Wolfe audiobook. You can get a free audiobook with a 14-day trial to Audible by going to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio. Well, let's get into today's episode of Let George Do It, Vultures on the Wing.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Vultures on the Wing, another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice, changes my stock and trade. If the future shapes up like a condolence card with a big black border, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, because of a stroke of extraordinary luck, an investment of $20,000 promises to yield me $500,000. But the transaction must be closed swiftly, tonight, because with so much money involved, there are, naturally, vultures on the wing. I sing in the colonnade room at the Savoy Wilton, but I shall be home this afternoon at 3, if it is convenient for you. Signed, Maria. You're concerned that there's something questionable about the proposition. Is that it, Mr. Valentine?
No, I guess I'm just a creature of habit, Mrs. Burnett, but...
It's Maria to the whole world. Then why not to you and Miss Brooks, of course?
Oh, well, let's be real chummy and call me Brooksy.
You were saying, George...
Oh, just call me Georgie. Now, I was saying, when 20 grand teases back $500,000, I begin to drip with all kinds of doubts.
Oh, it's all very legal and terribly simple.
All right, you've written a lead. What about the rest of the story?
Those vultures on the wing.
Yes. 4 priceless paintings by Sebastian Zundert were sold to a very high-ranking general when the Nazis occupied Holland.
Sold?
Yes, the owner was a collaborator. He had no scruples about dealing with the Nazis. So it was all very legal.
Go on.
These 4 masterpieces passed from hand to hand by way of Portugal and Argentina to this country. They're still considered among the missing. But I'm in touch with the present owner, and he'll let me have them for $20,000.
Bargain sale.
Well, how did you and Mr. X get together in the first place?
That's where I think I've been very clever, Brooksy. From the Boulevard de la Croisée in Cannes to Ciro's on the Sunset Strip, wherever I've sung, I let my interest in the Zundert canvases be known to the right people.
Oh, isn't that a little like shooting blanks and not even having a target?
I reasoned it had to be somebody in the international set. I was right. Last night, after 2 years, I received a telephone call. So you see...
Just a minute, Maria.
Huh? Oh, Nick, I told you to stay in the library. This is a business conference.
Well, why don't you have conferences with your husband? I graduated from the Harvard School of Business.
Will you please leave us, Nick?
No, we're going to have a conference. And don't want any strangers going to start by throwing this gentleman out.
Now, hold it, will you, Buster? What have you been drinking? Singapore slings with vodka?
Let go of me.
Nick, if you don't behave yourself...
Yeah, I know. You'll leave me. Then what would I do when all the bottles got empty?
Not in front of these people, Nick. Please.
Pride, self-respect. Most important, of course. Go on with your conference, darling.
That's better.
You may not think so, but I did graduate from the Harvard School of Business.
Forgive the interruption. But, as I said, Joe...
Yeah?
The plan for tonight is terribly simple. You are to pick up the briefcase with the Zunderts in the colonnade room. You are my accident insurance to make sure that everything goes off smoothly.
More than Hetty Lamar. Now, look, we have just about 10 minutes before you meet the man with the briefcase down in the lobby.
Oh, this is just about my cue to go to the powder room with this briefcase full of old newspapers under my rack.
Right. And on the way back, make certain everybody in the place knows you've got it.
Do you really believe anybody will think we've made the swap in the powder room?
This operation is strictly cloak and dagger, Brooksy, so let's play along.
Well, what have I been doing up to now?
Well, the point is, if there are any interested parties in the offing, they'll stick right here with me and your briefcase. While you go downstairs and claim the other one and get over to Maria's.
Well, here I go. I just hope my briefcase isn't showing.
I was hoping the young lady would leave so I could have a moment with you, Mr. Valentine.
Okay, I'll take out the stopwatch, friend.
Running errands for Maria? Charming creature, isn't she? I'm Alfred Steger.
Steger Art Galleries.
Oh, so you know me.
No, I've been lucky up till now.
Maria, the darling, might very well become the proud owner of 4 perfectly breathtaking Zunderts tonight.
You don't say.
But the poor pet is always at such loose ends. She might very well lose these treasures. Then if by some chance they found their way to me, you might very well find yourself $5,000 richer.
How did you get hold of the information, Steger?
Good heavens, man, you should know. Hasn't Maria even mentioned my name? I really believe I feel slighted.
Oh, you'll bounce back.
Just because I'm considering double-crossing her doesn't mean I don't think the world of the dear girl. However, what have you to say about being $5,000 richer? Scruples, awkward things, always getting in the way. But think it over, Valentine.
Good evening, Steger.
Oh, Van Brooklyn.
Would you mind returning to your table so I could speak to Mr. Valentine?
Now look here, old man.
Oh, please, boys, don't fight over me.
Please do not make me ask you again, Steger.
Oh, very well. I was quite through anyway. Oh, by the way, Van Brooklyn.
Yes?
Why don't you drop around at my gallery this I have some excellent reproductions.
Why do you speak to me of reproductions?
Because these might fool even you, despite your reputation as a connoisseur. Good night.
You belong in this act, too, Mr. Van Broekelen?
In a manner of speaking, I am the act, Mr. Valentine.
Oh?
If Maria has deemed it wise to hire you to ensure the safe transfer of the soon-dirt canvases tonight, that is her affair. But I must make sure you understand one thing.
Well, now, just understanding one thing would be a great improvement.
The $20,000 Maria entrusted to you belongs to me. She is merely a commission agent. Someone I hired more than 2 years ago to make it known in the right places that I was in the market.
I'd like to know who isn't in the market for those things.
I myself am merely a representative of a syndicate. A group of men who intend to acquire those paintings at any cost. So it would be most sensible if you made sure they found their way to me.
Mr. Van Broekelen, at the moment I'm playing bouncy ball with Maria. Now, if you want to get in on the game, you'd better talk to her. Otherwise, somebody might get hurt.
I see. Well, I am afraid I must leave you. Your lovely companion is returning. It was a great pleasure.
Oh, don't mention it.
Who was that sinister character with a beard? His eyes look like a couple of boiled onions behind those thick glasses. Who is it?
Later, Brooksy, later. Let me have that.
You can't say everybody in the place doesn't know I came back with a briefcase. I did everything but play catch with it.
Yeah, I saw you. Now go on and get the one we really want.
Yeah, okay, George. But be a nice, peace-loving decoy, darling. I want you back all in one piece.
Okay, go on now, Angel. Get on your tricycle.
Yeah, okay. See you at Maria's.
Nice run you've got there, Valentine.
Well, thank you. I've got very good taste. Except in the kind of people I seem to attract to this table.
Why don't you be satisfied? Stay away from Maria.
How are you, Buster? And don't tell me I can find out at any post office by just looking at your picture, front and side.
Maybe you've heard of me, Jim Fowler.
I hope you noticed I just went pale.
Hey. Now you shut up all over and listen. Maria and me are friends. Good friends, Catch.
That's cozy, Fowler.
I want you to stay away from her, and I want that briefcase you picked up for her tonight. I'll give it to her in the dressing room.
As you were, Jim. Reach like that again, and you're going to leave some fingers on that table when you say goodbye.
You're not very smart, Valentine.
On your way, Pixie. I got things to do.
You heard me. In the car.
Oh, you're the muscle boy for Van Broekelen, Steger, or Fowler?
Get inside, or you're going to collect yourself a lot of holes that'll spoil your appearance. And give me that briefcase.
Suppose I pout. You're not going to shoot me down on the street, are you?
Try me. Get wise, stupid. You're playing with the older boys now. Get in.
Hey, Brooksy, what happened?
It's all pretty vague, George. I got here just before you, George. Hurried here after my last show. I found her on the floor. And the paintings she brought, they're gone.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Hey, you sure you're feeling better now, Angel?
Yes, darling, I think so. Well, I came right here, just as you told me. Then when I opened the door, it was all dark. And then, somebody hit me.
Uh-huh. Hey, has your husband, Nick, been over there like that all the time?
I don't know. I found him that way with his head down on the table. He's no good to anybody.
George, you don't look fresh as a buttercup yourself. Where have you been?
Somebody wanted a briefcase full of newspapers so bad they floated me out of town. I had to walk back till I got a cab.
Oh, but the pictures.
I told you we'll get to that. And the next time around, I'm going to get the truth from you. Right now, I want to see if your husband here knows anything we ought to know. All right, you. Hey, Burnett. Come on, Burnett. Snap out of it. Come on, sit up in the chair.
Nick! George.
Oh. Yeah. One of our friends fixed it so that Nick will be stone cold on the hottest day in July.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. If you're driving a new car, you're probably getting a lot of pleasure out of its smooth performance. But wait until you try a tank full of new, improved Chevron Supreme gasoline. It gives car performance to delight the heart of every motorist. Thanks to special blending agents, new Chevron Supreme gives your car faster starts and faster warm-ups. It gives your car new alertness in traffic, ping-free power to lift your car over hills. In fact, for today's high-compression engines, you can't buy a better gasoline. And premium quality Chevron Supreme is climate-tailored. So wherever you drive in the West, no matter what the temperature or altitude, you'll agree new Chevron Supreme gets the best out of your car. Try a tankful tomorrow. Get it at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. A glamorous lady known simply as Maria to the international smart set sends you on an errand, namely to drop off 20 grand and pick up for painting. Then various and sundry personalities start double-crossing each other all around you to snare the above-mentioned canvases. And as an added fillip, Maria's husband is found stabbed to death. Momentarily, you bide your time, which if you're anything like George Valentine, you devote to cerebral contortions while Lieutenant Riley does the talking.
Mrs. Burnett, did your husband know all three of them? I mean Ben Brooklyn, Steger, and Fowler?
Yes, more or less.
Uh-huh. Well, I've got an all-points bulletin out for them. We'll have their stories in the morning. Right now, I want to get the picture here straight. Now, Miss Brooks.
Yes, sir?
You're sure there isn't anything you forgot to tell us?
No. It was dark. I hardly got in the door. Then I thought I saw somebody looking at me. Well, then that may be imagination.
I came here directly from the Savoy. Well, anybody can tell you that
Okay, Mrs. Burnett, okay. Nobody is questioning your alibi. Anything else, Miss Brooks?
Come on, think hard, Brooksy.
Yeah, well, just as I passed out, I remember hearing a loud noise. A crash of some kind. That's all.
Hey, Riley, that means the lamp and the stand over there were knocked over when the murderer was leaving, and not in the struggle with Burnett.
Back to the same thing. They both knew each other, and there was no struggle. But, Valentine, maybe you can explain something else to me. The bloodstains near the foyer door, and Burnett lying with his head on the table a good dozen feet away. How did he make the trip with the knife in him, and why no signs of blood in between?
Yeah, I've been kicking that around too, Riley, but it keeps bouncing back at me.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave the whole thing until tomorrow when I know a lot more than I know right now. Well, good night. Oh, you'd better stay put, Mrs. Burnett.
Oh, we'll come along with you, Lieutenant.
May I see you a moment, George?
I'll be right there, Brooksy. Yeah, Maria?
You're not walking out on me, are you? I need you more than ever now.
I can't imagine you needing anybody. But if it's going to make your dreams any sweeter, I'll be seeing you in the morning. Better get your story straight.
I know you are very anxious to speak with Maria Valentine, but I thought it would be wise if I talked to her first this morning, so there would be no misunderstanding.
What does he mean, Maria?
I'm sure Mr. Van Brooklyn intends to tell you that himself.
But first, may I explain this patch of court plaster on my cheek?
Looks like somebody set out to make a veal cutlet out of you.
Fortunately, the thugs who attacked me took my word that I do not have that Sundar, so I know where they are, which is true.
Sounds like Fowler's boys on the job.
The important thing is to restate the bargain I made with you, Maria. A liberal bonus if you located the paintings, and to consummate the deal, $20,000 at your disposal, for which I have a receipt.
What have you got to say, Maria?
Perhaps she will speak more freely after I leave. Just remember, Maria, I expect you to produce the money or the pictures.
All right, sweetheart. Let's scrape off all the fine-fingered intrigue and see what we've got here.
Oh, George, I've been so alone, so frightened.
No fun getting caught in your own squeeze, is it?
Come closer.
Yeah.
George. I'm in love with you.
Well, you must be really scared to stagger into that routine.
Don't talk like that.
I suppose now I'm expected to rush out and get those Zundits for you.
That's a lie. I swear I was thinking of us. What the future would be like with all that money.
Which wouldn't belong to you. Now, let me tell you what the score is. I sent Brooksy over to Steger's galleries to ask a few questions, and I... Well, don't give me that used-up smile. I'll admit that's one from my memory book.
We're still in business.
I'll let you know when I'm taking in my son. Now, you listen. I've measured all the angles, Maria, and I think I know the setup. Maybe even a little better than you do.
I'm listening.
About 2 years ago, Fowler slithered into your life. He was the kind of tough-minded man you liked. An exciting contrast to Nicky Boy, who was always lit up like a busy switchboard.
No character analysis, darling. Just the facts.
What if I told you your boyfriend moved in on you, shoulder holster and all, after working out a deal with Van Brocklin?
What? But they don't even know each other.
I'm guessing it was Fowler who sicked the Dutchman on you to suggest you pass the word about the paintings to your friends, the former black marketeers, the run-down royalty, the professional sophisticates.
You can't make me believe that.
Those two had split the fancy fee Van Brocklin's syndicate was willing to pay. That is, if one or the other wouldn't work a double cross.
Oh, those two conniving...
Makes sense, doesn't it? But then you and Brother Steger were going to pull a fast one, too. As an art dealer, he can not only okay the pictures, but find the right market for them.
Really?
Then you could pay back the 20 grand and say you weren't going to play anymore.
Very well. I admit that.
But there's more, Maria. Steger was all primed to cross you.
What?
Made me a proposition. $5,000 if I delivered those masterpieces to him.
What an unholy mess. And if it's all true. Listen, George. If you play this right, you can still...
Wow. Hello, Fowler.
I told you to stay away from her, Valentine.
Bad memory. One of my worst faults.
Go over him, Batsy. See if he's carrying a rod.
Stand still while I fan you, bud.
Never mind. Here.
Jim, what are you going to do?
We'll talk later.
Hey, look at this fancy heater this guy cuts around, Mr. Fowler. Look at me. I'm the Green Hornet. I got a whole army coming at me. But I go...
Where did you pick that up, Fowler?
Batsy is missing a couple of brain cells. He reads too many comic books. But he does what I tell him. And that's all that matters. Valentine, where are those pictures?
I got the same story I gave your boys last night. I wouldn't know.
Jim, is it true about you and Van Brocklin?
Sure. Like I said, we'll talk later. Batsy.
Yeah, Mr. Fowler?
Drag this peeper over to my hotel. Keep him there. He's got a lot of talking to do. If he doesn't, he's not going to walk back from this ride.
Look at me now.
Oh, please, no more, Batsy. Now, will you stop waving that gun?
Now I'm the heavyweight champion. Bam, biff, bang, he's down. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, Batsy. Huh? There's somebody at the door.
What? Oh, hey, one squawk out of you and you know what you get.
I know. What's more, I believe.
What you want, sister?
I'm here to clean up Mr. Fowler's suite. I ain't got all day, you know.
Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, I didn't know you had company. Oh, but I can clean around the gentleman if he'll just cooperate.
Wow, you're a cute kid. How about you cooperating with me? We might get places together.
Oh, fresh, ain't you?
Come on. Make it snappy and get through.
Gee, you got a funny voice, mister.
Huh?
Oh, didn't you know? You're talking to a frog with a man in his throat.
Now, listen here, you...
He looks like an overgrown meatball to me.
That's all from you, babe.
Looks like a punch-drunk fighter with a hot foot.
I warned you, babe. Now I'm going to play marbles with them pretty blue eyes.
George!
That does it. Impolite to turn your back on it. Yes!
Jeepers. Did you see the size of his hands, George?
Wait till I get his gun. Hey, you were terrific, Angel. What blessed little voice guided you from Steger's over here?
Steger's own sweet falsetto.
Huh?
Well, when I walked into his galleries, I heard Steger screaming blue murder in the back. Somebody was giving him a going over.
Fowler's really covering territory today.
And then I heard Steger cry out your name.
Yeah?
Then somebody said Fowler was taking care of you at his hotel. I mumbled something and backed out of the place.
Oh, if I had the time, Angel, I'd kiss you.
Oh, I ought to get something for the $5 I slipped the chambermaid.
Now we got to give this place a double quick canvas for those Zundits.
Yeah, but if they were here, George, why would Fowler be picking up assault and battery charges all over the city?
I don't know, Brooksy, but there are a couple of weird angles that keep popping up in my mind like three blind mice.
Such as?
Well, never mind now. Get on the phone and ask Riley to get our all-star cast at Maria's.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will notice that one member of our little group is missing.
Yes. Where's Mr. Steger?
Why, in the morgue.
What?
Yes, your Gunsels put a little too much enthusiasm in their work, Fowler.
You're not pinning this on me, Lieutenant. And I'm clamming up till I see my lawyer.
That's your constitutional right. Let me have those paintings, Valentine.
Here you are, Lieutenant.
You found them.
They're mine. I can produce a receipt for the money I advanced Maria.
Where'd you find them? Where were they?
In your place, Buster.
Right under a neat pile of your monogrammed undies.
Which adds up to this. Fowler, I'm holding you for the murder of Nick Burnett and Steger.
Can I call my lawyer?
I don't know what you were trying to get out of Steger, but that'll come out in time.
Wait, Lieutenant.
Yeah?
Somebody planted those pictures in his apartment.
What?
Well, what do you mean?
But that sounds crazy, George. Why?
Maybe Mynheer Van Brooklyn can tell us.
I, who was willing to spend a fortune to secure those Zunderts?
Yes, Valentine, that doesn't make much
Oh, but it does, Lieutenant, it does. With Fowler framed for murder, you wouldn't have to split with him, Van Brooklyn. The paintings were bound to find their way back to you. You have legal ownership. Maria's receipt.
Absurd. Mere speculation.
When Miss Brooks walked in here last night, she thought she saw two eyes staring at her. They were the glint from those egg-sized lenses you use for glasses, Van Brooklyn.
That's right, George. Oh, I'm sure.
The noise Miss Brooks heard after she was hit was you crashing to the floor with the table and the vase. That's when you got that gash in the cheek. Nobody's been slamming you around.
Then it was his blood in the foyer, not Burnett's.
Yeah. The lab tests will prove that beyond any doubt, Riley. You're pinned down like a butterfly, Van Brooklyn.
Well, what's the joke?
These pictures. People have bought and sold them, degraded their souls and spilled blood for them, ever since I first put them on the market in Europe.
What of it?
Just this. They did it because these are masterpieces. Art in its most sublime form. I know of this because I have followed their trail across the world. There's no syndicate. No one but me. I want them back, and you know why? Because I painted them myself.
Oh, listen.
Yes,
You
yes.
painted them?
I fooled the entire art world. The greatest hoax in the history of art. With my failing eyesight, I knew I would never paint again. But I would have these as a tribute to my talents. Yes. And after I died, they would be accepted as the best things Zundert ever did. Please. Valentine, it would be possible for me to keep them with me until they...
I don't know why not, Van Brooklyn. You've paid for them. No, Brooksy, Fowler's goon squad merely gave Steger a good roughing up. Van Brooklyn delivered the coup de grace.
Oh, George, the reason sounds fantastic, even though I know it's true.
Yeah. Van Brooklyn was that fabulous character the papers were full of after the war. He sold $1 million worth of fake art to Goering and Company. Steger recognized him despite the beard.
Yeah, this shindig takes the cake for pure, concentrated finagling.
Yeah, awful tempting, all that, though. Hey, no, Angel, just out of curiosity, what would you do if you found $500,000?
Oh, well, let's see. Well, if it belonged to a poor person, I'd return it.
To a poor... Okay, don't explain it. The pain will go away in a few minutes. For the greatest motoring pleasure you've ever enjoyed, let me remind you again of new Chevron Supreme gasoline. For today's high-compression engines, you just can't buy a better gasoline.
That's because new Chevron Supreme gives your car faster starts. It gives your car faster warm-ups, too. New pep in heavy traffic driving. Power to lift your car over the hills with never a ping. And it's a premium quality gasoline that's climate-tailored. That means it's specially blended for each different altitude and temperature zone in the West. So wherever you drive, try a tank full of new Chevron Supreme, and you'll agree it gets the best out of your car. Get it at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations, where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Next week, when we again catch up with George Valentine, we'll hear an incredulous Brooksy say,
"Oh, don't be so smug, George. Didn't you hear me? The man wants you to prove he's a murderer."
Well, no accounting for taste, Angel.
Oh, he must be crazy.
Maybe.
Well, no sane person would write a letter like that.
Still, he raised a very interesting question. He wants to know if I'm an imbecile. What do you think, Brooksy?
Are you going to take this letter seriously? Then the answer to his question is yes.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Herbert Little, Jr. and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Maria Palmer as Maria, Ted DeCorsia as Van Brooklyn, Leo Cleary as Steger, Ed McDonald as Fowler, Barney Phillips as Nick, and Frank Richards as Patsy. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, we got a few listener comments to get into. I love that reference to the Green Hornet. Ted DeCorsia played the villain here, or Ted DeCorsia, and it really showed some of the flexibility with dialect. DeCorsia is known for playing a wide variety of different villains in television and movies. But on radio, he did have some lead roles. Among them, he played Mike Hammer in That Hammer Guy. And he also played Inspector Peter Black of Scotland Yard, and does a pretty good British accent. So was a valuable person on the radio for many, many years because of that ability to master a lot of different dialects. Got a comment here from Kathleen regarding the show we did a couple weeks ago, Lady in Distress. In the time I've been listening to Let George Do It, this is the most deviation from the norm for sure. Brooksy in the starring role, too bad she got set up. Hey, wouldn't it be great to have Susie and Brooksy team up for some action? Oh, well, it will never happen, but it's fun for the imagination. Well, Kathleen, it could happen, in a way, not on one of the original radio shows, but there is actually, if you've heard of fan fiction, there is actually fan fiction for old-time radio that has been published in books. The title of the series is It's That Time Again. And I think they're up to 5 different books, and they basically take and propose new storylines for favored characters from a variety of genres. I got the first book, and I read a little bit of the Candy Matson and their Johnny Dollar ones, and it didn't just quite seem true to life. But If somebody writes the story, it could land in It's That Time Again. As a writer, if there were any detective story I would love to adapt or write on, it would have to be Let George Do It. There's just so much there. However, I want to be sure to have cooperation of the families of the writers and also a few more publishing credits under my belt, because I'd want to do it right. All right, well, we got this comment from Joshua. Really like your show and listen while doing my work. The problem I have is the audio levels changing from show to show and segment to segment. Sometimes the intro music blasts my ear, and then your commentary is really quiet, and the show is somewhere in between. Finding a way to keep everything consistent for each show would be nice. Well, thanks, Joshua. Without having examples of specific episodes, it's kind of hard to tell. Most of the shows, the audio is done by Andrew Rhymes. Occasionally something happens and, a show audio is not available in time, so I'll put it together, and that can lead to a little bit of inconsistency. We also deal with, from show to show, it varies the quality of the source audio we're using. But I definitely appreciate the need to keep that as consistent as we possibly can. Finally, we have this comment from Justin from New Jersey. Adam, I love your show. My favorites are Jeff Regan and Let George Do It, but all your shows are entertaining. Keep up the good work. From Justin in New Jersey. Thanks, Justin, and thanks for all your comments. Well, before we do get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, I do want to briefly let you know that we have updated our big list of detective shows. We will be doing Dangerous Assignment. And those of you who have the app or who have our premium site can enjoy an unhosted preview of what Dangerous Assignment sounds like. I think our listeners will like it when we get to it. And also, if you have the app or a premium site today, you got another added extra. The first of 4 episodes of Cavalcade of America starring Basil Rathbone. And these 4 episodes really are a treat. They're the best 4 of the 10 that I listened to. I was only going to do 2, but I heard these and I just could not go without doing all of them. So we got 4 of those 10. Before we do get started with today's show, I do want to remind you about our entertainment books. Folks, this is a great way for you to be able to do the things you want to do in a tight economy. Local merchants in your area have got special offers to get you to try their services, and it's in this great entertainment book. And whenever I've said this before, but whenever I get the entertainment book and I use it, I get far more in savings out of the book than I put into actually purchasing it. So go to entertainment.greatdetectives.net or just go to greatdetectives.net, click on the entertainment book link, and you can view everything available in your area. Well, let's get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Tankerville Club Scandal.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And I know that Dr. Watson will agree with me when I tell you that the best way to begin a good meal is with a glass of Petri California sherry. Before you sit down at the table, pour yourself and your family a glass of Petri sherry. Try it. There are many ways to tell a good wine, by its color, its aroma, and its flavor. On every count, Petri sherry is outstanding. The color of Petri sherry is a clear, deep amber. Perfect. The aroma? Well, Petri sherry is as fragrant as a bunch of dew-covered grapes picked in the early morning. But most important to you, and to me, is the flavor of Petri sherry. We want a wine that tastes good. And believe me, you couldn't ask for a more delicious wine than Petri sherry. And just to make sure you get a wine that's exactly the way you want it, Petri makes 2 kinds of sherry, the regular and Petri Pale Dry. If you're not sure which you like better, why not try them both? Don't buy 1, buy 2. Just be sure you always buy Petri Petri Sherry. And now I'm sure our good friend Dr. Watson's ready for us. Let's go in and join him. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell. Quiet minute. I don't want it.
Dogs seem very chipper tonight, Doctor. Have they been getting into any more trouble lately?
Oh, no, my boy. It's been a relatively quiet week for them. One meeting with a dead seal, 2 visits to my neighbor's chickens, and a losing battle today with a cross-eyed Siamese cat.
You call that a quiet week, huh?
Oh, it is for them, but never mind about the dogs. Draw up your usual chair and make yourself comfortable. You're just in time to join me in a glass of sherry.
That'd be very nice, Doctor. Oh, I see you have the old dispatch box out again.
Yes, my boy. As the story I'm going to tell you tonight took place in 1887, I thought I'd better refresh my memory on some of the details of the case. It was shortly after my marriage, and as I'd bought a practice in the Paddington district, I saw very little of my old friend Sherlock Holmes.
How was doctoring in those early days?
A struggle, my boy, a distinct struggle. Dr. Farquhar, from whom I'd bought the practice, had at one time an excellent clientele, but his age, combined with an unfortunate affliction, he that resembles St. Vitus's dance, had very much thinned it. I had confidence, however, in my youth and in my energy, and I was convinced that in a very few years the practice would be as flourishing as ever. But, as I said, I saw very little of Holmes in those days.
I guess you were too busy to visit Baker Street, huh, Doctor?
Here you guessed quite correctly, Mr. Bartell, quite correctly. Holmes seldom went anywhere himself save on professional business. You can imagine my surprise, therefore, when one day on coming home from a heavy day's work, I found that Holmes had decided to pay us a visit. My wife persuaded him to stay to dinner, and as the three of us sat at the table, the flickering candlelight dancing strange patterns on the walls, felt quite like old times. Holmes was in an unusually gay mood, and I can remember the twinkle in his eye as he turned to my wife and said,
"You're a brave woman, Mrs. Watson. You feed an unexpected guest on the maid night out. I'm extremely grateful. Mrs. Hudson's cooking, though excellent of its kind, lacks variety. Your dinner has been quite a treat."
That's a very gracious little speech, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I've never known you to be so observant about food, Holmes.
Perhaps the lack of your company, my dear chap, and the consequent lonely meals have made me conscious of Mrs. Hudson's culinary shortcomings.
I suppose you're taking John out with you tonight on one of your cases.
Oh, no, Mrs. Watson. No, I can understand your suspicions. My visit was purely social.
Then let's go into the other room and have a pipe, shall we?
Well, don't you think you'd be more comfortable at the club?
Miss Old Mary, I believe you want to get rid of us.
Oh, no, dear, it's not that. It's just that...
your visitor is due at any moment, and you had counted on the house being empty by now.
Why, how on earth did you know that, Mr. Holmes?
Past half hour, you've been glancing at the clock with mounting anxiety. I feel sure that... If it had not been for my unexpected visit, your good husband would already have been walking towards his club.
Yeah, it is my custom to go to the club on Thursdays, but how'd you know?
I know your habits, my dear chap. As well, if not better than you do. It's a good thing I'm a bachelor, isn't it, Mrs. Watson?
Yes, indeed. A wife could keep no secrets from you, Mr. Holmes, I'm sure.
Well, Mary dear, who is your visitor, and what is the secret that you've been hiding?
It's innocent enough, John. As Thursdays is the maid's night out, and you've been going to the club, I've been letting Alicia Wentworth meet her young man here. With me as chaperone, of course.
Oh, so that's the mystery.
Well, Watson, young love is on the wing, and I'm sure we're dreadfully in the way. Let's stroll to Baker Street, shall we?
Yes, of course, I'll get my coat. Why didn't you tell me, Mary?
Well, I was afraid you might be angry, John.
Angry, of course, Mary.
Alicia's such a sweet girl. And Harry Prendergast is a very charming young man. He comes from an excellent family, has a commission in the infantry, and the children are tremendously in love. But her beastly guardian forbids them to meet. So Oh, there she is now.
Well, we can pretend that we were just leaving anyway.
Yes, I'll get my coat.
Hello, Alicia, dear.
Oh, Mrs. Watson, I'm so glad to see you.
Come, dear. Alicia, this is my husband and Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, my dear? It's a shame that we have to go now, but my friend and I have some very important business to attend to.
You're Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the detective, aren't you?
Yes, Miss Whitworth.
Please don't go, Mr. Holmes. Please don't. I need help so badly.
Why, Alicia, what's wrong? You're as white as a ghost.
Let's go into the drawing room, shall we?
What's troubling you, Miss Wentworth?
It's Harry, Captain Prendergast. I don't know exactly what's the matter, but something dreadful has happened to him.
Oh, now sit down here beside me, dear. That's it.
Miss Wentworth, what reason do you have to suppose that Captain Prendergast is in trouble?
I've seen friends of his today. They spoke of him almost as if he were dead, and yet they wouldn't tell me why. And just now I went to his club, and they told me that Captain Prendergast was not a member. But he is a member. He's been a member for years. Oh, what's happened to him? What has happened to him?
There, dear. Mr. Holmes will help you. Now, don't you cry.
Have you been to the police, Miss Wentworth?
No, Doctor. You see, I went to my guardian, but he wouldn't let me go to the police. He said there'd be a scandal. But then he hates her.
The Prendergasts are a fine family. Why does your guardian object to him so strongly?
I don't think he would approve of anyone I choose. He doesn't want me to get married.
Oh, sounds like a positive ogre to me. Who is your guardian, my dear?
Colonel Moran. Colonel Sebastian Moran.
Indeed. He's a man who has many entries against him in my ledgers, but a man that I've never met. I have long hoped to cross swords with him directly.
But how could Uncle Sebastian have anything to do with the criminal profession, Mr. Holmes? He's the son of Sir August Moran, and he was once British minister to Persia. Oh, you must be confusing him with someone else.
No, my dear, it's the same man, and furthermore, I'm almost certain that your guardian is the right-hand man of a certain friend of mine whose name also begins with the 3 letters M-O-R.
Good Lord Moriarty.
I have no proof. And yet I suspect that Colonel Moran is the second most dangerous man in London.
That's Harry. It must be Harry.
Oh, poor girl. I do hope you can help her, Mr. Holmes.
I shall do my best, Mrs. Watson.
If that is her young man at the door, it's more than likely her problem doesn't exist any longer.
I hope you're right, Watson. Though with Colonel Moran as a guardian, I'm afraid the young lady is destined to have trouble.
Come on, Harry.
Good evening, Mrs. Watson.
I'm so glad to see you, Harry. This is my husband.
How do you do, Doctor?
How do you do, my boy?
And Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, Captain Prendergast?
How do you do, sir?
Harry, what's wrong? I can tell by your face that something dreadful has happened.
It has, darling.
Tell Mr. Holmes about it. He's promised to help us.
Well, sir, I'm afraid this is a little outside of your province.
You will find that my friend's province is quite extensive, Captain Prendergast.
I shall be more than happy to do anything I can to help, sir.
That's very nice of you, Mr. Holmes. Well, it's pretty bad. Last night I was accused of cheating at cards at the Tankerville Club.
Oh, dreadful.
Of course, I don't have to tell you that I didn't cheat, but the evidence was dead against me. I'd been winning heavily, and the cards were proved to be marked.
Marked? How?
There were pinpricks on the edges. Pinpricks which indicated the card's value.
How did the pack of cards come into play?
That's the devil of it. I myself broke open a sealed pack given to me by the club porter. And I swear that was the pack that was later found to be marked.
Was everyone searched?
Yes. But they found a new, unopened pack in my pocket.
The obvious implication being that you had substituted the marked cards, of course.
I can see what happened. Somebody deliberately tried to incriminate you by dropping the new pack in your pocket.
Of course, darling. But what I can't understand is how the marked pack was introduced into the game.
Were there any other cards found in the room?
None, Doctor.
The Tankerville, eh? Colonel Moran is a member of the club, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Uncle Sebastian uses it all the time.
He was present at the game last night, Alicia.
Oh, Harry, now we're worse off than ever. If he thinks you cheated at cards, he'll never let us get married.
Now, don't worry, Alicia. I'm sure that Mr. Holmes can find a way out of this.
I'm afraid it'll be too late. I couldn't marry you now, Alicia.
What do you mean, Harry?
But they forced me to resign from the club. That's a bad enough disgrace. But I know there's worse to come. You see, I was expecting my promotion to major any day. Now it'll be a miracle if I'm not cashiered from the regiment. What kind of a life can I offer you?
Harry, you're talking absolute nonsense.
I think, Captain Prendergast, the next step is obvious. We must remove this apparent stain on your character.
But how?
Miss Wentworth can stay here with Mrs. Watson. The doctor and I will drive over in a cab with you to the club and see what can be done.
What kind of a card game were you playing last night, Prendergast?
Stud poker. Ever since the American ambassador introduced it at the club, it's been quite a favorite.
The perfect game for marked cards. It requires no elaborate dexterity in the dealing, simply the knowledge of your opponent's whole card. How many of you were playing?
Half a dozen of us.
You were winning heavily, you say?
Yes, Doctor. Though one of the others, a fellow named David Harkness, was doing well. Now I come to think of it, Harkness almost seemed to know when I was bluffing, as though he could see the marked cards.
Well, perhaps he was the one who marked them.
It's possible. And yet certainly no one could accuse him of tricky dealing.
He was so clumsy with his bandaged finger, eh?
How did you know he had a bandaged finger, Mr.
I'll
Holmes?
tell you that, Captain Prendergast, when you tell me what's really on your mind. There's a great deal more at stake than a card scandal, isn't there?
Yes, there is. I didn't dare to tell Alicia about it. You see, I'm fighting a duel tomorrow.
A duel? Lord, with whom?
Colonel Moran. Huh? He insulted me last night. He goaded me beyond a man's patience. He taunted me until I couldn't stand it any longer. And so I challenged him.
And in so doing, gave him the choice of weapons.
Yes, confound it. Of course, he chose revolvers.
Moran was a big game hunter of note. He was reputed to be the best shot in England.
And I'm probably the worst in London. If only I could shoot as well as I can box. I'm regimental champion, you know.
Revolvers? Good heavens, man, revolvers. A duel with Moran is suicide for you.
No, it's not suicide. At the Tankerville Club. Here, cabby. Keep the change, will you?
Oh, blimey. Thank you, Governor.
Suicide. No, it's not suicide. This is a carefully laid plan for murder. Pray heaven that we're not too late to avert it.
It's Mr. Harkness that you're wanting, sir? Yes, he went to his room half an hour ago. Number 108. Up the main stairs and down the corridor, sir.
Thank you. I want you to follow us in precisely 1 minute and bring a sealed pack of the club's playing cards to Mr. Harkness's room. Do you understand?
Oh, yes, sir. And thank you.
Did you make the arrangement?
Yes, come on. Let's go up to Harkness's room.
Well, 3 members have cut me dead since I came in here. It's the most humiliating experience.
A little patience, Captain Prendergast, and I'm sure your honor will be entirely vindicated.
I wish I knew what you were up to, Holmes.
I'm going to try and restage the drama that was presented in this club last night. The only difference being that my production will have a cast that's a little different. Now, here we are. Now, let me do the talking.
Yes? Did you want something? Prendergast, I don't want you in my rooms. I don't know why they allowed you inside the club.
Let us in, Mr. Harkness, please.
No, I won't. Take your foot out of the door, confound it.
Mr. Harkness, there are 3 of us. I think you'd better let us in.
You're going to let us in, Harkness.
Oh, all right. Come in.
Thank you for your hospitality, sir.
Now perhaps you fellows will tell me what the devil you think you're up to.
With pleasure. As you very well know, Mr. Harkness, this is probably Captain Prendergast's last day on Earth. He has one request to make of you, that you join him in a farewell game of poker with us, to show you bear no grudges.
Oh, it's fantastic. You're all insane.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Harkness, I'm delighted to notice that your sore finger seems to have healed with great rapidity. By an odd coincidence, you'll observe that I seem to have injured mine.
Mr. Holmes, when did you do that?
Oh, in the carriage just now, a mere scratch. Fortunately, I had some first aid materials in my greatcoat.
Come in.
Yes, Taylor, what is it?
Begging your pardon, Mr. Harkness, but the gentleman asked me to bring this sealed pack of cards here.
Put them on the table, Taylor.
Very good, sir.
Well, what's the game?
Stud poker, Mr. Harkness. A game with which you're quite familiar, I understand.
And the stakes?
A man's honor. Possibly another man's freedom. Open the pack, Mr. Harkness, and deal us all a hand. I should think this might be a very unusual game.
You'll hear the rest of Dr. Watson's story in just a few seconds. Time for me to explain that Petri California Sherry is not only an ideal wine to serve before dinner, but it's also the perfect wine for almost any occasion. Petri Sherry is fine after dinner, when you're listening to the radio or just sitting around talking. And, of course, you couldn't ask for a finer party wine than Petri Sherry, especially if your party is at cocktail time. If you don't know what wine to buy, you can't go wrong with Petri Sherry. But be sure it's Petri. Look for the letters Petri. They spell the proudest name in the history of American wine. Well, Dr. Watson, that was quite a game of poker you were settling down to. I have a feeling that Sherlock Holmes had an ace or two up his sleeve, didn't he?
Figuratively, he did, Mr. Bartell, though at the time I must confess that, as usual, I was pretty much in the dark. David Harkness opened the new sealed pack of cards, and the four of us played a hand of poker. It was easy to see that our unwilling host was far from happy. His ferrety eyes darted from one to the other of us as he played our cards. He knew that he was the victim of a conspiracy, and so he was watching every move we made. Finally, as that strange game progressed, Captain Prendergast leaned across the table and said,
I think you're bluffing, Harkness. Do you? Well, it'll cost you exactly the limit to find out. How curious are you?
By Joe, I think you are bluffing, Harkness. I'll see you.
He'd be a fool to, Watson, when he has a straight flush.
What do you mean, Holmes?
My dear Harkness, the markings are quite apparent, I assure you, to someone who knows what he's looking for.
Scott, you mean that these cards are marked too?
Examine them for yourself, old chap.
They are marked. They're pinpricked just like they were last night.
Oh, that's impossible. Harkness broke the seals of the new pack just now. We all saw him do it. He couldn't have switched the pack.
And why would I do that, even if I could? I wouldn't try and cheat Mr. Sherlock Holmes, would I?
No, Mr. Harkness. I just wanted you to know that I understood the trick.
What trick, Mr. Holmes?
The same one that was played on you last night, Captain Prendergast. This was a demonstration of how easily a sealed pack of cards may be turned into a marked one by a man with a sore finger.
What on earth's a sore finger got to do with it, Holmes?
Oh, it's very simple, Watson. A pinhead or a thumbtack hidden under the bandage, a tiny pressure against a card one wishes to mark as it comes into one's hand, and after several deals, hey, presto, a marked pack.
Oh, so that's how it was done. You can't prove it, Holmes. You can't prove a thing. You weren't here last night.
No, unfortunately, I wasn't, Mr. Harkness. Otherwise, I should have had the great pleasure of exposing your trick at the time. As it is, I shall have to rely on a public confession.
You'll never get a confession from me.
Possibly not, but I'm sure that you'll be interested to know that I've made quite an extensive study of card sharping. In fact, I've considered giving a little lecture or demonstration here at the club.
What are you talking about?
This game that we've just played was in the nature of a rehearsal. I should, of course, stress this particular method as being of great local interest. I'm sure most of the gambling members will recall one man who has had unusually bad luck with his fingers.
Holmes, you're trying to ruin me.
Well, you were willing to see Prendergast ruined.
And killed. For a pistol duel with Colonel Moran is almost equivalent to murder.
What do you want me to do?
From the direction of your glance, Mr. Harkness, I'm certain that you keep a loaded revolver in your desk drawer. That's a very poor solution, I assure you. Why not be a man, write a confession and sign it? It'll free Captain Prendergast from any stigma, and it'll help to trap the real culprit, Colonel Sebastian Moran.
Moran? But where does he come into the picture, Holmes?
Mr. Harkness knows, don't you?
And I think I know now. Why don't you tell us, Harkness? One thing at a time, Prendergast. I owe it to you to write a confession. I'll do that, rather than face a public exposure in the club, but that's as far as I'll go. If you have any ideas about Moran, go and talk to him yourselves. There's a certain honor, you know.
Even among thieves? Thank you for the implication, Mr. Harkness. You have writing materials here?
Yes, I have writing materials, Holmes.
Splendid. Then while you're telling the truth about last night's episode, we'll call on Colonel Sebastian Moran. Have you any idea where we might find him at this time of night?
Yes, I have every idea. You'll find him in the gun room. Thinks he has a duel on his hands tomorrow.
In the gun room, eh? Thank you, Mr. Harkness. We'll go and talk to him. You may expect us back within half an hour.
Who are you fellows? Turn the gas up, can't you?
Colonel Moran, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
Colonel Moran, I've been wanting to meet you for a very long time.
Sherlock Holmes. I've heard a lot about you.
And I of you, Colonel.
Harry, what are you doing inside the club?
Mr. Holmes brought me back. We've just left David Harkness's room. He's writing a confession that he engineered the swindle last night, that he deliberately tried to involve me.
So, in that case, I suppose I need oil this revolver no longer. Harkness is a cheat. Dear me, how shocking.
Aren't you glad that my name will be cleared in this business?
Of course I am. I'm delighted.
And you'll apologize for the things that you said last night?
Yes, Harry, I'll apologize. But you must realize that this revelation makes no difference to my feelings about your marriage to Alicia.
On my soul, Colonel Moran, it seems to me that one
Dr. Watson, I think the name is.
Watson, yes, my name's Watson.
Dr. Watson, I would suggest that the happiness of my ward is a matter that cannot possibly concern you.
Now, look here, sir, I don't want to go...
Will you, old chap?
Oh, sorry.
Colonel Moran, I think I may be able to change your mind on the question of your ward's marriage.
How very interesting. And what makes you labor under that delusion?
Would you care to have it known at the club that you had deliberately planned Captain Prendergast's murder?
What in thunder are you talking about?
You know, sir, that a revolver duel with you is no duel. It's a cold-blooded killing.
Rubbish. I was challenged. Therefore, I had the choice of weapons. Naturally, I chose the weapon with which I was most familiar.
And you had the choice for a very good reason, Colonel Moran. You forced Prendergast into a duel because it was the only way you could be certain that he'd never marry your ward.
Alicia? What do you know about her?
More than you think, sir. She's at my wife's house this very minute.
She suspects you of jealousy. I think it's far more likely that the financial aspect of guardianship is involved here. A financial accounting is due upon her marriage, isn't it?
That's none of your business.
An accounting is due, Mr. Holmes. Alicia told me that herself.
Exactly, and the accounts were in no state to undergo scrutiny. The answer is obvious. David Harkness, a card sharp, was in need of money. You induced him to practice his cheating last night in order that you could trap Captain Prendergast into a duel.
Harkness, what the devil do you want?
Put that revolver down, you fool.
I don't care about my own disgrace, but you're going to pay for your share in it, Moran.
Drop that revolver, Harkness. Don't you see that you're... Moran, you shot him.
You saw that it was in self-defense, gentlemen. He was waving a loaded revolver at me. It's most unfortunate, but it was in self-defense.
Yes, self-defense that removed the one dangerous witness who could have testified against you. He's dead, Watson, isn't he?
Yes. Shot right through the heart.
Moran, you're a cold-blooded, murdering devil.
I demand satisfaction for that insult. These gentlemen are my witnesses. I apologize for the misunderstanding last night, but this is a different matter. You've insulted me, Harry.
The duel will take place, Colonel Moran, and Dr. Watson and myself will act as seconds for Captain Prendergast. Let's make the necessary arrangements, shall we?
Mrs. Watson?
Yes, Alicia, dear?
It's 2:00. What can have happened to them? They left here just after 8.
Oh, well, if you'd been married to John for any length of time, my dear, you wouldn't worry. When your husband goes out with Sherlock Holmes, you're prepared not to see him for a few days.
Mrs. Watson, what are you saying? I haven't got a husband.
Oh, now, Alicia, don't glower at me like that. What did you say the time was?
It's just after 2, and they left here at 8. What can have happened?
Well, I don't know. But Mr. Holmes was with them. So don't worry, my dear. He's frightfully clever. I wouldn't be surprised.
There's the front door now. They're back.
Oh, dear me. Now I'll have to make cocoa.
Harry, darling, what's happened?
Oh, lots of things, darling. I'm a member of the Tankerville Club again. I'll probably become a major. And you'll certainly become Mrs. Prendergast before very long.
Oh, it all sounds wonderful. What have you two been up to, John?
Oh, it's the old story, Mary, dear. Holmes solved the case, and it all ended happily.
Happily? My dear Watson, that's hardly the word to use. Harkness is dead, and Colonel Moran is probably in hospital.
Please, tell me what happened.
Well, your guardian challenged Captain Prendergast to a duel. He overlooked the fact that since he was the challenger, the choice of weapons belonged to his opponent.
And perhaps you can guess what that choice was. Boxing gloves.
We've just come from the gymnasium at the club, Alicia. I'm afraid I really gave him a thrashing.
And a well-deserved one, too. I'm only sorry that I couldn't put him where he belongs, behind prison bars.
Oh, Harry.
He'll be the laughing stock of London.
I'm glad of it.
But that means that he'll never consent to our being married.
I disagree, Miss Wentworth. If we keep his secret, and we've hinted that we might, I'm quite certain that he'll withdraw his objections to the marriage, and somehow he'll make up his deficiencies in his guardianship account.
Probably by borrowing money from Professor Moriarty.
Oh, I think it's all wonderful. But it's well after 2:00 in the morning. Let's go into the kitchen, shall we? I'll make some cocoa.
Cocoa? Spot of whiskey.
Harry, you and Alicia stay here. You probably have some plans to make.
Oh, cocoa's not a very exciting drink.
Oh, shush, John.
Oh, sorry, dear.
As soon as the cocoa's ready, we'll call you.
Well, Doctor, that was some story. You know, I'm glad the age of dueling is over. I'd hate to have someone challenge me to a duel.
What's the matter, Mr. Bartell? Are you afraid of being hurt?
Afraid of being hurt? Of course not. If someone challenges me to a duel, I have the right to choose the weapons, don't I?
Yes, and what weapons would you choose?
Cream puffs at 30 paces. Nobody's going to hurt me.
see that.
Although, come to think of it, instead of cream puffs, I'd rather have a piece of cake.
Oh, why a piece of cake?
Because it tastes so good with a glass of Petri sherry. Any questions?
No questions.
For a while there, I'll bet you thought I'd forgotten all about Petri wine.
Forgotten about it. Not you, Mr. Bartell.
No, not anybody who's ever tasted it. Petri wine is the kind of wine you'll always remember. That's because the Petri family really knows how to make good wine. They've been making wine for generations. Winemaking is their heritage. It's an art that's been handed on down in the Petri family from father to son, from father to son. Every drop of Petri wine is clear, fragrant, and delicious. As delicious as the luscious, sun-ripened California grapes from which it's made. Remember, the name Petri on a bottle of wine is more than a trademark. It's the personal assurance of the Petri family that their wine is the kind of wine you like, for any occasion. You can't miss with Petri wine because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Well, Dr. Watson, what new Sherlock Holmes story are you planning to tell us next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you an adventure that took place in the gay Vienna of the 90s. Concerns a strange tragedy that occurred on a ballroom floor and a weird series of murders that were punctuated by the sound of music. I call the story The Waltz of Death.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The 5 Orange Pips. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week. Next week, many communities will change time, and this program will reach some of our listeners at a different hour. Consult your local newspaper or mutual station for the exact time in your area. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this was a curious episode for a number of reasons. First of all, the name Sebastian Moran will be familiar to you if you've been watching the video theater episodes as we've sent them out. Sebastian Moran was the villain in Terror by Night, which actually was only released 2 months before this episode aired. And in the movie, of course, Sebastian Moran was an unknown character who was basically surreptitious and undercover. So it's kind of unusual that they would reuse that same character name right after it had been used in the movie. And of course, he did appear in an actual Sherlock Holmes story in the Empty House. And also, interesting enough, dueling in the late 19th century is a little bit of an anachronism. Dueling had really fallen out of favor in England in the middle of the 19th century, so long before the time of Sherlock Holmes. But overall, a pretty intriguing mystery that didn't have any bodies until the very end. I like how Holmes deduced how they pulled off the card cheat. So a fun episode. The one thing I wondered about right away at the end was it mentioned that in some communities, Sherlock Holmes would be heard an hour later. And I looked into it, and time changes. State of Arizona in the United States is a bit of an exception on time changes to daylight savings time. But what I found is that after World War II, for about 20 years, individual communities decided when and how they were going to keep daylight savings time. So it would be possible to drive 35 miles and have to change your watch several times depending on whether there was daylight saving time or not. And radio stations that broadcast over a wide area, there's just no way you could accommodate all those changes. Now we turn to some listener feedback. Kristen writes in regarding Father Brown. Thank you so much for taking the time to share these programs with us. Of course, I've got favorite characters and programs, but I've generally found that I enjoy listening to all the featured shows. That said, I just don't know about Father Brown. I'll listen again, of course, but if religious postulating occurs in each episode, I think I may need to call Tuesday quits. It's funny, I don't consider myself overly sensitive. I support the right to religion for everyone, but I found myself annoyed by the wrapping up of this episode. I'm sorry to complain. I do wonder if I'm alone in this. All said, thanks again. I do usually enjoy your selection. Well, thanks a lot. I understand, Kristen, not every show is for everybody, and we've had some folks who didn't like Pat Novak, some who didn't like Johnny Madero, some folks who don't like Sherlock Holmes at all. So there's a variety of different preferences. Of course, there was only 2 weeks of Father Brown, and next week we start out with Nora Wolf. I hope everyone will be listening for that. Finally, I got a nice comment here from Mark. Hi, Adam. Love the shows. Just plucked up the courage to join Facebook on my 45th birthday, and you're one of the first to get a post. Keep up the good work, Mark. Well, thanks a lot, Mark, and welcome to Facebook. And I hope you enjoy Facebook and continue to listen to the great detectives of old-time radio. Before we get into today's action-packed episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, I do want to ever so briefly remind you about Johnny Dollar Air. In these tight times, it's important to save money on your travel expenses. That's why we're proud to bring you JohnnyDollarAir.com, which is through Priceline. When you go to JohnnyDollarAir.com, you can name your own price on hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, cruises, even more. Or you can also choose from published fares. So you got great flexibility as you make your plans for the holiday season. Remember JohnnyDollarAir.com. Now let's get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the Trans-Pacific Export Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
Al Harper at Corinthian, Johnny. I got a case here you won't like, but the commission will be good if we beat it.
How big is the policy?
$250,000. But you'll have to fly to Hong Kong.
Well, you still haven't scared me, Al. Is there something you're leaving out?
Yeah, the policy holder. Trans-Pacific Import-Export Company. We've had trouble with them before, remember?
Yeah. I sent flowers to the widow.
You want to take a crack at it?
No. But I will.
Edmund O'Brien in another transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Corinthian Liability and Risk, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during investigation of the Trans-Pacific Import-Export Company, South China Branch. Expense account item 1, $1,200, fare and incidental expenses between Hartford and Hong Kong. I realized 3 minutes after I got off the plane that there is no longer any simplicity in Hong Kong. To fill the smallest want is a complicated problem. There is a shortage of transportation, food, water, and space. Both the island and the city of Kowloon on the mainland have been swamped by the flood of millions of refugees moving out of the interior. I fought my way through the jammed streets and to the offices of the American consul.
Oh, yes. It's true. Life is very difficult here.
Where are they all going?
Many of them don't know. Where is there for them to go?
Well, what do they do? How do they stay alive?
Many of them don't. Yes, sir?
The gentleman from the States.
Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Dollar.
Would you set him in, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Grover is ready to speak with you.
Thank you.
Hartford, Connecticut, eh? Sounds foreign.
I suppose it would.
It's a pleasure, Mr. Dollar.
Grover.
Insurance investigation, eh? Yes, sit down.
Well, I don't suppose my problem will seem very important out here.
Yeah, I was thinking the very same thing. It's always the case. On the fringe of war, very few individual problems are important, nor are the individuals themselves. I trust you will keep that in mind while you are here. Now then, what is your errand?
The Trans-Pacific Import-Export Company.
Oh, yes. Will Meadows' firm on the mainland, destroyed by fire last month.
100%, according to the claim he sent the company that hired me. $200,000. Do you know this, William Meadows?
I've met him at the American Club now and again.
The company isn't satisfied with the report on the cause of that fire. It was blamed on vandalism.
Vandalism has become quite a popular pastime across in Kowloon, especially. I take it you suspect fraud.
Well, Trans-Pacific had a branch in Shanghai. When the war closed in on them up there, the same thing happened. They came out far better by collecting on the insurance than they would have by standing the expense of liquidating.
Yeah. I suppose coincidence won't quite do, will it? What do you want from this office, Dollar?
Oh, I'd appreciate some phone calls or letters that would get me some support from the fire brigade and the police.
So we're back to the individual problem. But I'll do the best I can.
Thank you, Mr. Grover. I won't take up any more of your time.
Let me know how you make out. Have you found a place to stay?
No, not yet.
Well, don't bother with the Occidental places. They're jammed. But speak with my receptionist, Mr. Vedras.
Yeah, I saw on the way in. Vedras? I thought she was Chinese.
Half. Her father is Portuguese. He has accommodations about halfway up the peak on Sing Wong. Charming girl. Nice people.
Oh, good. I'll ask her. And thanks again.
Oh, Dollar, just a matter of interest. The case in Shanghai. You say the insurance company was forced to meet the claim there?
That's right. The investigator they sent over was killed before he could build a case.
Oh?
They blamed his death on war conditions, too. Said he was robbed and knifed by starving refugees. Nobody had time to dig up the truth. Sing Wong is a street of steps that climb from the waterfront to the plush European residences on top of Victoria Peak. My accommodations were a room that looked out on an alley, an iron bed, a chair, and a pitcher of water on a bamboo table. There were no other non-Orientals in the building, but I seemed to be the only one that noticed it. I was suffering from a sort of claustrophobia and loneliness that night. And at first, I was glad to learn it was she who knocked at my door.
See if you are comfortable.
Oh, thank you. I am. Oh, this is fine. Oh, I don't have much to offer you. Cigarette? Scotch?
No, thank you. I came because I am curious.
I'm in Hong Kong on business, if that's what you mean. It's better kept confidential right now.
Is there danger in this business?
Why do you ask that?
Because you are followed here. You are being watched.
How do you know?
Oh, I know this street. I've seen this man. He has not been here before.
Where is he?
Maybe you can see him from the window.
Wait a minute. You tell me where he is. I'll look.
Shop on the other side. There are boxes piled near the door.
Well, thanks for telling me about him.
Do you know who he is?
No, I didn't think anybody knew I was in town. Let's talk about something else. What is that music?
It's a love song. There's about two lonely people who meet near a river.
Oh? In America, they're different.
Yes, I know. I like them.
You know many Americans?
Yes, I want to marry one.
He's a lucky American.
Oh, no, I don't mean there's only one. I want to marry an American who will take me from China. There is no other way.
You hate it that much?
There's nothing else to do but hate it. There's no good here. Always trouble. Chinese are very patient people. But I am not all Chinese. I can't make myself be patient any longer. I want to go.
What about your Portuguese people?
They are gone. You think I am bad to be this way? Honestly,
I didn't say that.
I am not bad.
I hope you find your American, Miss Vadris.
You want me to go now?
I think you'd better. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Good night.
Three things interfered with sleep that night. The watcher who was still at a station across the street when I turned out my light, the pleading in the eyes of the girl, and the smells and sounds that drifted into me from the restless, crowded city. It was 4 a.m. before I dropped off. And at 10, I was walking up the gravel drive that led to the residence of Mr. William Meadow. The watcher had changed, but I was still being followed.
Oh, yes, sir.
Is Mr. Meadow at home?
Oh, yes, sir. You give them.
Who is it, Lamb? My name is Dollar, Mr. Meadow. I'm from Corinthian Liability, Hartford office.
Well, so they sent another snoop. Let him in, Lamb.
You come in.
What did you say your name was?
Dollar?
What's the matter with that company, anyway?
This doesn't have to be unpleasant, Mr. Meadow.
They sit back there in Hartford with nothing to worry about but Sunday's golf game. They don't know anything about the conditions we're working under.
They do know that your fire here pretty much follows the pattern of the one in Shanghai.
Of course it does. The conditions are the same.
Including the starving refugees who killed and robbed the investigator?
Careless people are dying here every day. Now say what you have to say to me and get out of here.
Well, it's very little. I came here to get my reaction to you. I have. You jumped to the conclusion you were under suspicion before I got through the door. You're on the defensive, so you must have a reason to be. And more important, you're having me followed, so you must be afraid of me.
Have your dreams, Dollar, but have them someplace else. Now get out of here. Go snoop through the ashes. They're cold.
Expense account item 2, approximately $4 American taxi and rickshaw fares. Legwork is strenuous enough in a familiar city. In Hong Kong, it took me the whole afternoon to locate 3 people who had worked in the office of the Trans-Pacific Company. The first was Franklin Abbott, accountant. Please find enclosed transcript of his statement signed before witnesses.
Well, I didn't give a thought to how it started, to tell you the truth. I just went to work one morning, and there it was. Ashes.
Well, had they made any preparations for going out of business?
No.
How about the rest of the firms in that section?
It was all closing. We might just as well have. There wasn't no trade.
But still, they hadn't moved any of their merchandise out.
That's right. The storehouse was full.
I suppose your books were destroyed, too?
Oh, yes, sir. Everything went. It must have been a vicious blaze.
Well, how about the other companies? Any of them burned out?
No. Huh. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah?
The other storehouses over there, the empty ones. There wasn't no vandals burning them. The people broke in and lived in them.
Separately, the other enclosed statements aren't very strong evidence either. The night watchman who was discharged just before the night of the fire, and the clerk who had seen William Meadow burning a confidential memo from Trans-Pacific's head office in San Francisco. But with the 3 together in my hand, I could begin to see a case building against them. I was dog-tired that night when I climbed the steps of my Sing Wong Street to my hotel. What are you doing in here?
Nothing wrong. I came to wait for you.
Why?
Because I am curious. Because I thought of you today. I wondered where you were and what you thought because I was so bold last night.
I've been busy.
You didn't think?
Yes, I thought.
Is he still watching?
A different one. But still watching.
Are you frightened?
I don't know. It's nerve-wracking. I've been followed all day.
Are you a criminal?
No. But you're right, I'm acting like one. Because I feel uneasy in your city. And I'm trying to do a job another man tried to do in Shanghai and got himself killed.
I will not ask any more.
If that hadn't happened, I could take you someplace tonight, be with people. I can't take a chance. I have to stay here in my room and hide.
Oh, I don't want to go anywhere.
Because if I can keep myself alive, I might be able to save $250,000 for a company with $50 million in declared assets. Now let's talk about you. I'm glad you waited for me. I think the toughest part of the case was the memory of the murder of that other insurance investigator in Shanghai. It made every group of Hong Kong Chinese potential assassins and every doorway a potential ambush. Gathering the actual evidence was almost easy. The next afternoon, with a supervisor from one of the fire brigades, I went to the scene of the fire on the outskirts of Kowloon.
Actually, Mr. Dollar, under the present circumstances here in China, arson can hardly be classed as crime. In the face of war, destruction of materiel is a common defensive maneuver.
I see what you mean.
Unless, of course, criminal intent can be proved. And even then, with an American firm, it's rather awkward.
The prosecution will be up to you people. What I want is evidence that'll stand up in court against their claim in the company. How do you think the fire started?
Inside the structure, without a doubt. And by means of apparatus one would hardly find in the possession of common bandits.
What?
Timing devices.
You have proof of this?
We recovered fragments, yes.
Well, could I get photographs of these things and sworn statements from you?
Yes, certainly. It's a pleasure to be of service to you.
Expense account item 3, approximately $45 American. A case of scotch in lieu of payment for the photo lab and clerical work the supervisor and his men did for me. By the time we were through, the company, at least, was protected. Pictures and photostats of all the statements had been posted to the Hartford office. It was well after 9 that night when I started to climb toward the hotel, and I noticed that for the first time since I checked in, I wasn't being followed. I took it for a good omen until I got there and saw the man who should have been following me standing inside the door.
I said her stay away from American men. I know good for her, but she don't listen. She go to him outside. She waits for him.
Quiet down, quiet down.
There he is.
Hey, that quiet down, I said.
What's this? What are you doing out in the open? Did you lose me?
Constable Trine, Hong Kong police. There's been trouble here, Mr. Dollar.
Police? What happened?
His daughter's been killed. Shot. She's in your room.
One of your longtime mystery favorites, Philip Marlowe, is now heard on CBS on Friday nights. Philip Marlowe, Up for Parole, and Songs for Sale. That's the lineup of fine shows for Friday now on most of these same CBS stations. Hear them this Friday, hear them every Friday on CBS. The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, Up for Parole, and Songs for Sale. Now with our star Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Shots were fired through the window. Shade was drawn. She must have been right in front of it. Light behind her. How well did you know her?
Just for a couple of days.
A jealous suitor, perhaps. She was beautiful.
How come you were following me, Constable?
Orders direct from the Inspector General. Request came from a Mr. Grover at the American consulate. Said you needed protection.
Well, then you know better than to mention a jealous suitor. She was killed because with only a shadow behind that shade, they thought it was me. Where were you when it happened?
I was waiting for you outside brigade headquarters when I heard about it.
When did it happen?
No more than 15 minutes ago.
15 minutes? Why couldn't we have been here? Just
15 minutes.
It's too late to bother yourself with what might have happened. Besides, it's not the same as it would have been if she was a British national.
Oh, shut up.
I beg your
Take
pardon.
me down to your lieutenant or superintendent or whoever he is. I'll make my statement of him.
Yes? Oh, it's you, Crane.
Good evening, sir. This is the American chap, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, yes. Superintendent Clyde. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Thank you. I want to make a statement on the Vadras shooting.
Vadras?
I don't think it's got to you yet, sir. What with all of them these days? A Chinese girl. Fathers are Portuguese.
I see. You're in possession of information pertaining to this case, Mr. Dollar?
Information? I know who's guilty. I'm not sure who fired the gun, but an American national named William Meadow is guilty. Now, don't stop me. She was killed in my room. She was killed because she was mistaken for me. I've been here 3 days collecting evidence of attempted insurance fraud against Meadow, and that's why she was killed, because they mistook her for me. He's got to be arrested tonight.
Good Lord, sir. I can't place a man under arrest on the basis of a statement like that. Certainly not an American.
I have proof of a motive. Here. The evidence of fraud is right there. Photograph statements. Look at them.
Beg your pardon, sir. It was a Chinese girl who was killed.
By mistake.
Rather difficult to prove, I'm afraid.
She was in my room.
My dear chap, do you have proof that this Meadow fellow knew where you lived, which room was yours?
Oh, how do you prove things like that?
Unfortunately, there are certain niceties of jurisprudence which we must respect. Right or wrong, sir, I'm convinced of your sincerity, and I appreciate it.
That's good. Could you help me look up the phone number of Mr. Grover's home? I have to see him.
Yes, Constable Crane will help you and see you safely there.
This way, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Dollar, your evidence. You've forgotten it.
Well, if it's too weak to make you believe me, I don't need it anymore.
Here we are, sir. Will you be with Mr. Grover long?
I don't know.
I'll wait in the car and get a breath of air. Beastly hot tonight.
Oh, come in. Come in. Dreadful news.
You've heard then?
Yes. Terrible shock. Come in here. I'll pour you a brandy.
Did you hear about my part of it?
No, just a bad tale. Her father was hysterical.
Oh, I tell you, Mr. Grover, this thing is driving me crazy. It's my fault she's dead.
Here you are, my boy.
We got to know each other pretty well during those 2 days. I don't know quite how it happened. This has been a bad job for the nerves with my mind on what happened to the man in Shanghai. She was there. I got there yesterday after a bad day. I didn't know who was following me. I guess I needed somebody to be with, so she stayed for a while. Tonight, she was waiting for me in the room. That's why she was killed. They thought it was me.
You're sure of this?
I'm positive. As sure as if I'd had a camera on the whole thing, but I can't move the police. It's not enough.
Well, they have to be cautious.
Look, something's got to be done. I can't have it left like this. I can't come into a life for 2 days and be responsible for her death and then see nothing done.
I'm afraid it's too late to accomplish anything tonight. In the morning, when our thinking is
Look,
clearer...
Stop it, will you? You're not going to tell me to go back to that room.
I'm sorry. You see, I at least am muddled. Of course, you can stay here.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I'd rather try to think this thing out by myself. How can I get rid of that constable? I'm liable to kill him if I hear any more of his cheery words of sympathy.
Where are you going?
No place, just walk.
I'll let you out by the rear door. When you want to rest, please come back here.
All right. I will.
And please, be careful. It's not too wise to be on the streets at night anymore.
It's a picture I'll never walk out of my mind. The girl who had wanted to leave China, lying with her head on one arm, as though she were asleep. I don't think I knew I would when I left Grover, but I did go back to the hotel and into the room. Her body was gone, but there were chalk marks on the floor where she'd lain. I transferred an automatic from my luggage to a coat pocket. And I walked some more. Meadow?
Who is it?
Mr. Dollar, I was here yesterday. Let me in.
You wait. Oh, hello, Mr. Meadow. He's not here. Now please, you wait. He's not here.
Close the door.
Mr. Meadow, he's not here.
Meadow!
Not here. You come back.
Where is he?
He said he come back 2-3 days.
I gotta find him. If you know where he is, tell me.
No, he come back.
Listen, I don't want to hurt you. You understand?
Do not hurt.
But I will hurt if I don't find out where he is. It's important.
All right. He go Cologne.
And you go with me. If he's not there, then I hurt. I've got to find him. Where is he?
All right, I tell you. Repulse Bay.
What?
Repulse Bay.
Repulse Bay. On the other side of the island. Where the big hotel is?
Oh, yes. He's there.
I can call there on the telephone?
Oh, yes.
Is he at the hotel?
No. He has a cottage. Number 7. Last one.
Where's the telephone?
Please. You not tell her you learn he there. The telephone.
Hong Kong police.
I want to talk to the superintendent.
Yes, sir.
Superintendent Clyde?
Will you believe a confession from William Meadow?
What? Who's this? Mr. Dollar?
He's at Repulse Bay, Cottage 7. I'm going after him. If you want that confession, have some men there. Outside in an hour. And quiet until it's finished.
Dollar!
A taxi got me there in 40 minutes. I was a few yards in front of his cottage when the police car slid without lights and cut motors. Meadow? Meadow!
Who is it?
It's Dollar.
Who the devil are you?
Dollar. Is that hard to believe? That was somebody else in the hotel room. I want you to go back into town with me. Will you come out or shall I come in? Meadow? Meadow. I don't suppose it could be called hewing to the niceties of jurisprudence. Since Meadow was dead, he could neither speak nor write his confession. But there were 2 police car loads of expert witnesses who took the fact that he had opened fire as an acceptable admission of guilt. The same thing cleared me legally on the grounds of self-defense. I had hoped that it would help clear my mind, but it hasn't. Nothing good came out of the assignment except saving your company some money that it didn't know it had. Expense account item 4, same as item 1. Expense account total, $3,544. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd and David Ellis, with music composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. Edmund O'Brien may currently be seen starring in the Columbia Pictures production 711 Ocean Drive. Featured in tonight's cast were Tudor Owen, Lillian Baeff, Hy Averback, Robert Griffin, Hal March, and Dan O'Herlihy. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. Join us again next week at this same time when, from Hollywood, Edmund O'Brien returns in another transcribed adventure of
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Every Thursday night, CBS brings you a top Hollywood star in a new radio play on the Hollywood Theater. Comedy and melodrama, fantasy and mystery. The dramatic fare on the Hollywood Theater is highly varied and always good entertainment. Stay tuned now for the Hollywood Theater, which follows over most of these same CBS stations. It's a concrete fact. The possible need for blood for our national forces is no longer a vague, shadowy possibility, says General George C. Marshall. The United States government has requested that the Red Cross again become the official agency for collecting blood for the armed forces, when and wherever needed. Dr. Eugene Adashek, medical director of the Los Angeles Regional Blood Service, voices the plea of the civilian doctor when he says, increasing quantities of blood must be made available for doctors to use in civilian practice. Red Cross can handle collection, processing, and distribution of blood. But you control the source. So call your Red Cross and make a date to give a pint of blood. Make a date to save a life. This is CBS, where Philip Marlowe takes the case every Friday night. The Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. This was just a tour de force. Edmund O'Brien is, from my listening, the most intense of the Johnny Dollars. And really, it comes in great here. Great drama, great emotion, just incredibly solid with throughout. I particularly liked his reaction to the police officer not caring a whole lot about it, because the murdered woman was not a British citizen. This particular script was actually used for auditions by John Lunn and Edmund O'Brien. I mean, not Edmund O'Brien, but Gerald Moore. In addition to this particular episode, and it was used on the air with Lunn, though the one that went over the air is not out there. I also found it pretty interesting from a historical standpoint to talk about Hong Kong as this place where there's great unrest and poverty. It was kind of striking to me because all my life Hong Kong has been a pretty well-off city. So this was kind of an unusual blast from the past in that way. Well, we do have some listener comments before we end the show. Susan says, for lovers of the Father Brown mysteries, LibriVox.org has podcast of 3 separate series of stories available on iTunes. Just search for Father Brown. They are pretty good. And that LibriVox is nice for its free audio content. I do know we do Audible here, but LibriVox does have free audiobooks for public domain works. So generally you're looking at stuff written in 1923 and before. So that's a good suggestion. I think I'll go ahead and add a link to the LibriVox Father Brown because we only had 2 mysteries there. Got a comment here from Dan who says, really enjoy your podcast, all of them. Anxiously looking forward to Nero Wolfe. Do you use or have a copy of the Encyclopedia of Old Time Radio by John Dunning? In answer to the question about John Dunning, I don't have the encyclopedia myself. It is searchable on Google Books. So occasionally when I'm searching for a radio show that's somewhat obscure, the Google search results will show me an excerpt from the Encyclopedia of Old-Time Radio. It's mainly interesting for giving you an idea of general genres. In some ways, it's almost obsolete for most series. I think that in past years where old-time radio was a kind of an expensive thing, and you wanted to find out, for example, what type of show is the career of Alice Blair before you actually bought a set, and sets could be pretty expensive, it made a lot of sense. Now, with so much of it online, you can learn a lot by listening to the shows. When I find the Dunning most helpful is when I have a series where there are no episodes in existence. Like Basil Rathbone did a radio series after he did Sherlock Holmes, where he played a Scotland Yard inspector, and no episodes are in existence. But we know about it because of Dunning's book. So probably a good thing to have, and has helped a little bit with some of my research of obscure series. But he goes on to say, I appreciate how much you appear to enjoy doing these shows. It makes it twice the pleasurable experience to listen to. Well, thanks a lot, Dan. And you mentioned Nero Wolfe. Well, Nero Wolfe is coming this coming Tuesday. And, of course, on Monday, we're going to be getting into the Thin Man actual radio episodes, not just the kind of radio movies that were done for Lux. So we've got a great week ahead of us. If you have any comments, send them to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Remember to cast your vote for the show once a month over on Podcast Alley at podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And please follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.